Good morning, people. Welcome to Success Tree classes. Well, we are starting now Newspaper Manthan video lecture series. In this video lecture series of Newspaper Manthan, we'll cover current affair analysis, means analysis of the newspapers, the important newspapers, and important articles in them. For example, Hindu, Indian Express, Business Standard, Mint, these kind of the papers will cover. Moreover, we'll do Yojana Economic Survey in India Yearbook of next year.
Okay, let us discuss those answers now. Okay, let us begin with these multiple answers questions. And the answer to the first question is, all of you got it right. How many of you got it right? It's Bonn in Germany. And then answer to the next question. Yes, it's option B. The answer to the next question, 58 kg, yes, yeah. And the answer to the next question, Thailand. So how many of you got all correct? What about you? You? Three. Okay. Okay. So we'll begin the discussions now. Okay, the first question was, some environment experts say the targets mentioned in the Paris Agreement are impossible to achieve. Highlighting the salient features of the Paris Agreement, critically analyze the challenges in achieving the targets of the Paris Agreement. Also mention few alternate solutions. So this question is very important because it relates to the whole climate change discussion. Okay, whole climate change discussion, which is part of GS paper 3. And you must be hearing about how the world community it 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 meets together. Okay, it meets for the conference of parties at the UN, which is hosted by the UNFCCC. Okay, the whole debate around climate change will be covered in this topic, and especially the Paris Agreement, which will be the framework after 2020, which will be implemented by the whole world, like all the countries of the world, for limiting the impacts of climate change and global warming. Okay, so the whole discussion will be in that context, and your answers also will be seen in that context only. So, can I hear your answer?
The Paris Agreement is a bridge between today's policies and climate neutrality before the end of the century. Signing parties agreed for a long-term goal of keeping the increase in global average temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. B. Coming together every 5 years to set more ambitious targets as required by science and reporting on how well they are doing to implement their targets. C. Recognizing the role of non-party stakeholders, including civil societies, local government, private sector, and others. Challenges in achieving the targets of Paris Agreement are as under. First, Paris Agreement becomes binding only if ratified by 55 nations together, consisting a minimum of 55% of global emissions. B. USA, which has been major polluter in the past, may not join it or pull out of it in midway. C. Financing of new technology for developing countries is a major challenge. Underdeveloped countries are not in a position to move to cleaner technologies without financial support of developed countries. Few alternative solutions. Setting up of Clean Technology Development Fund. Developed countries should make adequate contribution for the $100 billion fund as was envisioned earlier. More focus on carbon credits. Recently, the markets of trading of carbon credits is inadequate. Prices of carbon credits have fallen in the international market, making them unfeasible options for industries in developing countries. C. Putting international pressure on countries which have signed but not yet ratified the agreement. D. Technology exchange from developed countries to developing countries at fair cost and at least free for at least developed countries.
Okay, and the alternate solutions.
These are alternate from them only.
Next. Did not write. What about you? What about you? You written? Please read.
Paris Agreement, climate change agreement, which comes under the UNFCCC. It was adopted by 197 countries, and it will be implemented after 55 countries have ratified it. As of India ratified it on October 2. It's the introduction first. Okay, select features, sir. They have agreed to reduce the 197 countries have agreed to reduce the global temperature till below 2 degrees Celsius. What is next? This is binding agreement on developing countries also. Third one is main intention to reduce the fossil fuel usage in the GHG gases.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think you missed a lot of points.
GHG emissions.
Yeah. What is your name? What is his name? What is your name? You missed a lot of points in what are the features of the agreement. Like
INDC one.
You did not mention our INDC. You did not mention out that 1.5 degree range. Okay, that the World Forum is trying to limit. Moreover, there are a lot of points. So a lot of improvement needs to be done in your answer. Like I felt, because okay, you mentioned few challenges, but there are a lot of alternate solutions. Plus, the main features of the Paris Agreement, like you skipped a lot of points, and I wish you could have tried it.
Yes. So the main problem was that I wasn't able to recollect the feature.
Okay, yeah, this is exactly what I was trying to say. You skipped a lot of features of Paris Agreement. Challenges, fine, okay, like they were okay only, but the main crux of the question was what were the features of the Paris Agreement, salient features. Okay, so we'll discuss the article now. Has he given you the handouts? Can you please go and ask him? See, the Paris Agreement is very important. Okay, like it was decided in 2015, but there was no question about in 2016 also means, and it will be implemented post 2020, right? So in that context, the question is very important because it has not yet appeared in the paper till now. Like 2 years have, uh, 1 year has already passed since the agreement was signed. Okay. Now, in the beginning, you must be seeing the Doha Pact plus the Kyoto Protocol. So we'll come to that after we discuss the Paris Agreement. Okay. Because the upper two sections are also important in the context of climate change. Now let us come to the Paris Agreement. So the Paris Agreement is very important in the context of the debate around climate change, the actions of the world community, okay, in limiting the impact of climate change and global warming on our planet. So I would like to hear from you what all do you know about the debate of climate change? Like whatever you know, whatever you have read,
So there are
and anybody.
talks about like implementation of Kyoto Protocol, which came
Okay.
into force in 2005. Uh, the first phase came from 2005 to 10. The next was from 2012 till 20, with the onset of Doha Agreement. So now the last binding date is 2020 till when these conditions which are enlisted in the Doha Agreement, the stakeholders have to take part into to reduce the GHG's emissions.
Okay.
Also, there's been talk about the rise in temperature. It should be below 2 degrees before the pre-industrial levels.
Okay.
Also, all the developed countries, the what point of developing countries is that the developed countries should be having more responsibilities because they are being more involved. For example, the China and USA, they are emitting more than India. So developed countries should be having a more responsibility as far as the developing countries is concerned.
You?
On this only topic. Not major.
Not much. So see, Pat, anything on climate, okay, like the treaties involving around climate, huh? Okay. Yes, we'll be coming to that only. Yes. So environment is a major part of prelims. You all know, okay, and a lot of conventions, lot of treaties, and what are the components of those treaties? Okay, like in some treaties you must be here reading about certain gases which are very important. Okay, certain chemicals which are very important. This is very important from prelims point of view, okay, and from mains point of view the discussion around such agreements, okay, like for example let us say this Paris agreement is important mainly from the mains point of view, okay, but in prelims also they might ask certain features of Paris agreement, like they might give you certain statements and they might ask you like is it true or false, okay, or which one of these is true, okay. So you must remember because prelims June 18, I guess, right? June 18 is coming very fast, okay. So climate environment very important, and climate especially in this section, okay, means very important, okay. So you must try to read whatever you are reading, you must try to do it with immense focus because it's high time now, okay. So we'll discuss the Paris Agreement. See, the Paris Agreement acknowledges the development imperatives of developing countries by recognizing their right to development and their efforts to harmonize it with the environment while protecting the interest of the most vulnerable. See, there is this tussle between developed and developing country. Okay. See, the whole debate around climate change revolves around the fact that the developed countries they got developed far ahead of the developing countries, okay, way back, like let us say from the beginning of the industrial revolution, okay. So that continuous emission of these greenhouse gases, shall we say, like a lot of gases like carbon dioxide and others, okay. So when this whole debate of climate change came around in 1980s, okay, like even before 1970s also, when these summits, okay, on climate change started to took place, okay, like on sustainable development and climate change. So this whole idea of limiting the polluting gases started, okay. So the debate around this started. So when the world community gathered, okay, so there was this debate like which all countries should limit their industrialization, or shall we say their development agenda, so that these greenhouse gases, their amount could be limited in the atmosphere, right? Okay, are you understanding this? So this is the idea around which the debate around climate change involved, okay. And since the world and since the developed countries had developed at a very faster pace, so they started this, that the developing countries should also contribute the same amount, okay, in the efforts to reduce the climate change, okay. So but the developing countries said that no, we have not developed, we have a whole lot of population to be developed, so we cannot have same efforts as you. So this is the whole debate around climate change, okay. So this Paris Agreement, it acknowledges the development imperatives of the developing countries. It gives a lot of room, lot of space to the developing countries to develop their population, because in developing countries the amount of poverty is very high as compared to developed countries, and without the emission of greenhouse gases, the development of developing countries is impossible. Let us say India only, let us say, okay. So it gives enough room for the developing countries to develop, and it also take care of the interest of the most vulnerable. Now which are the most vulnerable? Least developed countries. So least developed countries, low lying countries, okay.
Which are in like island countries.
Yes, yes, low lying countries, coastal countries.
They will be the one who gets affected.
They will be the one who will be the most affected by the climate change. So it also takes their interest into consideration, the Paris Agreement, okay. Now come to the second point. The agreement seeks to enhance the implementation of the convention while reflecting the principles of equity and CBDRRC, that is common but differentiated responsibilities with respective capabilities in the light of different national circumstances. So can anybody explain this concept of CBDR and RC? Any of you?
Maybe talks about that although we are fighting for the same thing, but since you are more responsible because you have emitted more, it's your onus, it's your responsibility to tackle it.
Are you comfortable with this topic? Huh? Since you said not major, so that's what I am asking you. Yes, good attempt. You see the first 2 minutes that I talked now. This is CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities with respective capabilities. See the same thing. Okay, common but differentiated responsibilities. The what is common here? Common here is to limit the impact of greenhouse gases on Earth. Okay, on our atmosphere. Okay, right. This is common, but differentiated responsibilities. How? Since the developed countries, okay, are far ahead of the developing countries, they are equipped with a lot of technologies. Okay, they are equipped with a lot of advanced gases for their industries. Okay, which are less polluting in nature. They are having they have a lot of finances. Okay, their economic potential is too high, so they are the one who are supposed to take a lead in the efforts to limit climate change. This is CBDRRC with respected capabilities. Okay, now respected capabilities, the countries who are having who are far advanced, okay, far developed, who have the technology, who have the finance, they will be the one who will be contributing more. Okay, and what is this concept of equity? Same, right? So these two principles, okay, these two doctrines of equity plus CBDRRC, this is very important in the context of developing countries. Okay, so whenever you read newspaper and whenever you read something around this climate change topic, okay, whenever any convention goes on, okay, even as far as I know, like as far as my memory goes, okay, I read this concept of equity and CBDR in 2009 when the Copenhagen conference was taking place. Okay, like that time around newspaper, that time I found out, okay, what is this concept of CBDR and RC. Okay, so for developing countries, they keep stressing that without CBDR, RC, and equity, we are not going to yield. Okay, the convention will not be a successful one. Okay, we will not negotiate at all. Even in case of India, you will see the stance of India's climate change diplomacy is more focused around CBDR, RC, and equity. Okay, India also keep on saying that since we are not the biggest polluter, okay, and our contribution to this global warming is very less, so we are not going to share a major part of the efforts. Okay, the efforts has to be shared by the developed world, the advanced countries of the West. Okay, so this is the whole concept of CBDR and RC, and without CBDR, RC, and equity, any climate change convention is going to fail. Okay, so the Paris Agreement, it takes into consideration, it reflects the principle of equity and CBDR, RC. Okay, right? Are you understanding? So if any problem, please ask. Okay, now come to the next
So this
one. Okay,
Paris Agreement, like if in nutshell, what is it related about? Climate change or GHG's emission?
it's about climate change.
If an option comes in,
See why is climate change happening? Because of GHG only, right?
if options come, this is related to climate change
Climate
plus
change,
GHG.
climate. See, UNFCCC, this Paris Convention is under UNFCCC, okay, and UNFCCC is particularly responsible for limiting the impacts of global warming, okay, and climate change. So even if in prelims, okay, yeah, I got this. Okay, so even in prelims also, if you see option, okay, UNFCCC or any convention related to it, that is around climate change. Okay, for GHG we have a separate convention, okay, that is Montreal Protocol, and since GHG affects ozone, okay, so it revolves around ozone, but this UNFCCC, it's global warming, climate change.
But further in the Paris Agreement, it talks about GHGs as well. Rise of temperature is.
So see, what is responsible for climate change? Carbon dioxide. Okay, this is greenhouse gases. Okay, you know the concept of greenhouse gas, right? You must have studied in this. this is in school only. So how you must be seeing like how in a greenhouses plants are grown, right? So same concept. So come to the third point. Countries are required to communicate to the UNFCCC climate action plans known as the nationally determined contributions, right? Every 5 years. So every 5 years, the countries who are part of this agreement are required to contribute their nationally determined contribution. Like they will be determining what their contribution would be based on different parameters according to different countries. Okay, so India has its own INDC. Okay, intended nationally determined contribution, which we submitted in 2015 on October 2nd. Each party's successive NDC will represent a progression beyond the party's then current NDC, thereby steadily increasing global effort and ambition in the long term. Okay, so we submitted our INDC. So every 5 year, okay, when a country submits its NDC, every 5 year, the NDC will be an advanced version of what it was submitted earlier. Are you understanding? So, do you remember certain points of India's INDC? Because that is also very important. Okay, when you are discussing about climate change post 2020, India's INDC also very important. There are 8 points in those.
By 2030, we try to reduce by 35% to.
Yeah, by 2030 there will be reduction. India will try to reduce 33 to 35%
Yes,
of,
sir, yes.
and this one, okay, plus
15 to 20.
no, there are 8 points. I don't exactly
Yes, sir.
remember, but there is one on sustainable lifestyle. Okay, and we'll be contributing around 40% of non-fossil fuel based energy. That is also one of the important point. Okay, and there are total 8 points I remember. Okay, we'll discuss maybe in the later classes. Okay, okay, when we'll come to what is India's stance on climate change, when we'll discuss India's climate change diplomacy. Okay, in those whole thing we'll be discussing about INDC. So are you clear about INDC?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so each country has to submit its NDC. Okay, and every 5 years it will be an advanced version. Okay, so for example, let us say India, in its first INDC, India told that we will be trying to reduce our this carbon emission by 33 to 35%. Okay, so maybe in the second INDC when we submit, it may go up to 40% or maybe higher than that. Okay, so the efforts will be continuous and advanced one. Okay, so as time moves on, we will be making more and more efforts to limit the impacts of climate change through various sustainable initiatives. Okay, for example, let us say this is also an important point that India will be creating a carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon equivalent. This is also an important point in India's INDC. Okay, so maybe so this might take place through the creation of a lot of forest. Okay, we have a lot of initiatives for creating a forest like Green India Mission. Now, Campa bill is not passed. Okay, Campa bill is little different. Campa bill is little different. Okay, Campa bill is for like cutting of forest. If you remember that.
It was for basically financial
Yes,
financing
yes.
option when a industry or a private sector is going to cut some forest, he has to
Yeah.
contribute to the
Compensatory, yeah,
That is compensation. Campa is different. Okay, so we have this Green India Mission. Okay, now national green highways. If you remember,
Yes, sir.
right? So the transport minister told that we will be planting trees throughout the highways, right? So through these initiatives, we are going to reduce. We are going to create a carbon sink of around 2.5 to 3 billion tons. Okay, so maybe when India submits its next INDC, it will be an advanced version. Might be like, let us say we may go up to 5 or 10, right? So these efforts have to be taken by all the countries, and their NDC will be an advanced version after every 5 years. Okay.
Sir, what is the basic difference between NDC and INDC?
See, same.
It's
It's the
NDC
same.
is the the general term.
General term, yes.
When countries submit their NDCs, it will be like you will just add the name.
See, nationally determined contributions. Okay, so in case of let us say India said that it is intended. Like we will be trying intended one. Okay.
That's the future course we'll take.
Yes.
NDC is like I have 5 things and I'm doing it.
No, not doing it. See,
it's like telling that what we plan to achieve in next 5 years.
That's NDC. What is INDC?
Same thing.
Same.
In
What India told
yeah,
that he will try to achieve in as part of its NDC.
It's the same thing. Okay, same thing. No differences and same thing.
There will be UK
intended.
Sri Lanka.
See, both this is the same thing. And as you are saying, we are doing this. No, this is not legally binding. Even if India does not implement its INDC, there will be no liability upon India. Okay. So come to the next point. See, the agreement is not mitigation centric and includes other important elements such as adaptation, loss and damage, finance, technology development and transfer, capacity building, and transparency of action and support. So this is also an important point. See, the agreement is not mitigation centric only. Okay, it's not that we are going to reduce the impacts of climate change, but there are other important elements in it. For example, adaptation. Now, adaptation in the context of climate change, can anybody explain adaptation? Like in generally adaptation.
Like we are using coal-based fuel.
Okay.
From there, they are transferring to solar.
Yes.
Transferring to more renewable sources.
That's true. Okay. Now come to loss and damage. If you okay, it's very interesting. Okay, this whole debate around climate change. If you have read, a lot of conventions have happened. Okay, like before Paris, it was in Lima, I guess. Before Lima, it was in Warsaw. Okay, so in Warsaw summit in 2013, sorry, this concept of loss and damage came. Okay, so what is this loss and damage concept? Let me explain you. Loss and damage concept, it is generally related to the low-lying countries. Understanding?
Yes.
Low-lying countries, coastal countries, okay, who are more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, who are there is a probability that if sea level rises, okay, the chances of that submergence also increases, right? For example, let us say the island nations of the South Pacific, for example, Marshall Islands, Fiji, and a lot of countries are there, okay, in South Pacific. Let us say Maldives, okay. So these are the countries, these island countries specifically, who are more vulnerable. So this loss and damage concept has come for them. Okay, let us say the islands of the Caribbean. Okay, so this loss and damage concept is mainly for them. Okay, who can be subjected to the dangerous impacts of climate change through submergence due to sea level rise. Okay, so in 2013 Warsaw Summit, they shouted for incorporation of this loss and damage concept. Okay, and since they also targeted the developed countries, they also said that since you are responsible for climate change, you are responsible for this far advanced stage of development, far advanced stage of industrialization, you are going to pay for this. Okay, and why? Because see, if submergence happens, okay, so there will be a creation of new term called climate refugees. Like they are the victims of climate change, okay, worst victims of climate change. So are they going to take them? Okay, so to limit the impacts of climate change, okay, to limit the worst impacts of climate change, they are also asking finance and technology from the developed world, these low-lying countries. Okay, this is also important concept in climate change. Now finance, you must be knowing finance. Okay, technology development also. Any problem? And transfer, technology development and transfer, capacity building. Okay, capacity building considers a lot of works, especially around the civil societies. Okay, increasing the efforts in limiting climate change in cooperation with the let us say the authorities of the country, any particular country. Okay, and transparency of action and support. So this whole point is also very important and one of the important feature of this Paris Agreement. Okay, it's not only related to mitigation efforts; it also considers into account adaptation, loss and damage, finance, technology development and transfer, and certain other points.
So then we can say Paris Agreement is basically it has taken points out of from the previous pacts or agreements.
Yes. So see, why Paris Agreement? Because we assessed. Okay, Paris Agreement was an assessment, like how far we have come, and from here on, what we need to do till the end of this century. The target is up to 2000, like the 21st century, right? The end of 21st century. So from 1990, okay, 1992, when the UNFCCC was formed and the effort started, from there till 2015, okay, from 2015 to 2020, what post 2020? So this is for post 2020 period. Since the efforts have not been at a stage which is required to limit the impacts. Okay, now we are coming to the point. Okay, now if you see the before Paris, okay, the whole concept was of 2 degrees centigrade, limiting the temperature below 2 degrees centigrade of what it was in the pre-industrial level. Okay, now if we come to the point, now we're coming to the point. Okay, I guess it's missed upon here, but the limit is 1.5 degrees centigrade now. Okay, this is highly important point of Paris Agreement. We have jumped another level, okay, from 2 to 1.5, because the world community realized that achieving 2 degrees, even if we achieve 2 degrees centigrade level, okay, that is also not enough for limiting the impacts of climate change, the catastrophic impacts. Okay, for example, let us say sea level rise. Okay, now sea level rise, okay, uh, deterioration of forest, deterioration of wildlife because of climate change, that will also be not enough if even if we achieve the target of 2 degrees centigrade. So a lot of reports say that no, we need to go to 1.5 degrees centigrade if we want to sustain the planet. Okay, so that is also an important point of climate, this Paris Agreement. I think I have missed it here, that 1.5 degrees centigrade range. Okay,
Yes.
so please add that in your notes. So come to the next point. Climate action will also be taken forward in the period before 2020. Okay, developed countries are urged to scale up their level of financial support with a complete roadmap towards achieving the goal of jointly providing $1 billion by 2020. And at the same time, a new collective quantified goal based on 100 billion US dollars floor will set before 2025. So, have you read this about like
Sir, is it talking about the CVF, Climate Viability Fund?
climate viability fund?
Yes, sir. It was intended like 100 billion would be like this 100 billion would be
To finance the technology,
CVF.
basically the amount financial support lacking.
I don't exactly know the term that he's speaking, but I know about this one. So see, I think after 2009, okay, the Copenhagen conference, maybe I guess in Durban, I think it was in 2010. I'm not sure. I'll confirm the next class, maybe tomorrow only. Okay. So this whole thing of creating a fund, okay, this GCF, Green Climate Fund, I guess that is called Green Climate Fund. Okay, I'll confirm it tomorrow. Okay, no issues. I'll confirm it tomorrow. This whole concept was created that the advanced countries, okay, the developed countries of the world will be depositing around 100 billions for finance, okay, for financing the efforts of the developing countries towards achieving the goals of climate change, right? So since if I'm sure, yes, I'm sure. Okay, till now around 10 to 11 billion dollars have been deposited. Okay, and the goal was $100, sorry, $100 billion till 2020, but that goal has not yet been achieved. So the in Paris climate, in Paris agreement, in Paris conference, okay, what was considered was that there was this whole stress, okay, whole emphasis on depositing $100 billion by 2020, so that the developing countries could undertake the efforts, okay, towards limiting the impacts of climate change. this financing their efforts, okay, financing their initiatives in green technologies, for example, okay, for example, in creating forest. They also need billions of dollars in creating forest, okay, all the countries, okay, in removing poverty, okay. So this target of $100 billion by 2020, it's still pending, and we have like 4 years from now on, like 3 years, okay, let us say 2000, let us consider 2020, 4 years. So the stress was more on this. We discussed about building this fund, okay, in 2009 or 10, I guess, but till 2020 we have to complete it, okay, but it has not yet been done till now. Till now 10 to 11 billion dollars have been only given, okay. So the more emphasis was towards achieving this goal first, okay, and post 2020, now again this new fund $100 billion will be set before 2025. This is for post 2020, okay. And this green climate fund, yes, I'm sure green climate fund, GCF, okay, GCF is for till 2020, okay. Now come to the next point. The agreement mandates that developed countries will provide financial resources to the developing countries. Other parties may also contribute, but on a purely voluntary basis. Now if you see this point, and if you, okay, let me tell this point was not in the earlier conventions, okay. If you have read exactly that earlier conventions, okay, it stressed particularly on the developed countries, but this convention, this Paris agreement, it says that other parties may also contribute, but on a purely voluntary basis. So it includes the developing countries also, okay. Now if you see the earlier climate conventions, earlier climate change agreements, they talk only about the developed countries. This is a deviation, okay. This is a new theme in this agreement, that yes, not only the developed countries, the developing countries has also to, they also need to make an effort, they also need to contribute, but on a voluntary basis. It's not binding on them, right? So this inclusion about the contribution of developing countries is a new thing in this agreement. It was not present in the earlier agreements, okay. Now come to the next point. So any difficulty in understanding? See, the whole idea was that since this question is important, since this topic is important, since this particular agreement is important, okay, and it has not yet come into mains. 2015 it was signed, okay, it did not come in 2015 mains, did not come in 2016 mains also, okay. So there is a possibility that it might come this year also, okay. And the whole idea about discussing this is to make you memorize what are the important points, because in your answers also must have seen how you're lacking, right? So this, there needs to be clarity on what are the salient features, okay, and as we'll be discussing, what are the challenges also, okay. Now come to the next point. Developed countries are urged to take the lead in mobilization of climate finance, while noting the significant role of public funds in the mobilization of finance, which should represent a progression beyond their previous effort. So there is more emphasis, there is more stress on the efforts of developed countries here also, okay, and they needs to do what they have done earlier, like their efforts now should be at an advanced stage, okay. Now this a robust transparency framework for both action and support, that is fine. Now come to the next point, it is also very important. Starting in 2023, a global stocktake covering all elements will take place every 5 years to assess the collective progress towards achieving the towards achieving the purpose of the Paris Agreement and its long-term goals. Now this is also an important point. From 2023, okay, a global stocktake, like an assessment phase will take place, okay. There will be continuous assessment of the efforts, there will be continuous assessment of the results that will be achieved by then, okay, and accordingly there will be improvisation in the efforts to limit the impact of climate change, okay, and to limit the impact of global warming. See, global stocktake covering all elements will take place every 5 years, right? This is also an important point, you can underline it in your notes. About achieving the purpose of Paris Agreement, right? See the next point. The Paris Agreement establishes a compliance mechanism overseen by a committee of experts that operates in a non-punitive way, and it's facilitative in nature. This point is fine. It establishes a compliance mechanism. Okay, that is an important point. Now come to the second. Did you understand all the important features of this Paris Agreement?
Yes.
Shall we revise it for like how much do you remember? Estelle, important features.
Sir, first it will also recognize the right of development for the developing countries, because
Okay.
there always a debate between environment and the development.
Okay.
So basic economic development and this.
Next.
This climate green climate funding will be there.
Okay. Next.
Fund will be there. Second, it will also voluntary donation from developing countries, which was the first time, and it will not only be mitigation effort, it will also focus on adaptability, loss and damages and others.
Next.
It will also focus on that.
1.5 degree. That is very important.
1.5 degree. It will be the target.
That is the core. Okay, you should not forget. That is the target that has to be achieved. Okay, so that needs to be written the first point only. Okay, what is the goal? Okay. Next.
And
you.
Sir, by 2023, there has to be a global
stock take.
Global stock take that everyone needs to sit down and chart out the plans of the future. Every state.
There's the assessment of the achievements. Okay, the purpose. Okay, next.
Sir, the things it will facilitative in nature.
Okay.
The Paris Agreement.
NDC. So see, there are like 7 to 8 important points that you must remember, so that if question comes, there will be no wastage of time. Just write it. 7 to 8 points, highly important. Okay, because there is the other part of the question also. Okay, that needs to be addressed, right? So come to the.
Sir, it has been ratified by all 55 or maybe?
No,
not yet.
No,
I guess.
not yet. Sir,
And USA is not ratified.
No. USA is not ratified. Now this Trump is having another policy. Yes, what do you say?
Sir, I read that I think it's not having the GHG emissions point.
What?
Like the GHG emissions point. What did it talk about it? Paris Agreement to reduce it to a certain level, I think 20 to 30%.
That is NDCs. That will be contributed by the countries only. Like this is our level. For example, India says that we will be reducing our carbon emission.
Yes.
Okay, by 33 to 35%.
Maybe.
Right.
One more doubt. What is the time frame of this Paris Agreement? Till 2020 or unlimited? Like Kyoto was till 2012.
Yes.
After this Paris.
2020. Doha Agreement was set till 2012 to 2020.
Yes, it will be in force post 2020.
It is not in force now. Even
No. See, ratification process takes a long time. Okay, your ratification process is not easy. Once the government ratifies, it has to be passed by the legislature also, the parliament also. Okay, so the process has started. By 2020, it is supposed to come into force. Okay, if the ratification happens, 55 countries, right?
Like the Kyoto Protocol was, I think,
yes,
started in 95 or 97.
No, Kyoto Protocol. Okay, it was signed in 1997, and it came into force in 2005. Okay, would be coming to Kyoto Protocol also. That is important from film's perspective. Now come to the challenges to Paris Agreement. Okay, why some say targets are impossible to achieve? Like what are the challenges? Okay, the argument supporting the stand that Paris Agreement may be unsuccessful in achieving the targets are: see, what is the target? Limiting the temperature rise to 1.5 degree. Okay, so that the catastrophic impacts of climate change could be avoided, right? So what are those challenges? Now let us come to the point. Carbon budgeting. Although the Paris Agreement seeks to limit global temperature rise to within 1.5 degrees centigrade, it failed to impose concrete quota to countries based on IPCC's AR5, that is Assessment Report 5. Okay, so there are a lot of statistics in the report of IPCC. Okay, like this efforts needs to be done. Okay, there is a possibility that if you do not limit the carbon, if you do not limit the temperature to 1.5 degree, now sea level submergence could take place, wildlife could wiped out, lot of things. Okay, in IPCC's assessment report 5. Okay, so it failed to impose concrete quota. Or underline that point, that is important. See, in Paris Agreement, we have NDC, okay, that is intended national determined contribution. So this is voluntary, not binding in nature. So there is no quota for any country to reduce their global emission, to reduce their carbon emission. So since this is voluntary in nature, okay, so it makes the agreement little fickle, or little hollow, because it cannot be imposed, right? So since something is, if a country is not liable, if a country is not liable, made liable for its contribution, okay, if its country is not penalized, so there is chance that that country may not adhere to the guidelines, may not adhere to the rules that are made in the agreement. Okay, understanding. See, next point, mitigation commitments under the individual INDCs are of voluntary nature. This is also important. Since this is,
Sir, everything is voluntary. I think
yeah,
everything is
this is the point. Okay, since it is voluntary, since there is no liability, so there is a chance that a country might not stick to its INDC. Okay, and if there is violation, there is no penalization. So if there is no concrete quota, so there is chance that we may not be able to achieve the target that have been set. Okay, this is an important challenge, because a country is not made liable here. Okay, so if, for example, let us say a country decides to walk out, a major contributor to carbon emission decides to walk out. Okay, like US, let us say, for example. So what happens? Where does the agreement stands? Right. So there is no penalization. This makes the agreement little hollow. The next point, mitigation versus adaptive technologies. Concerns over the need for efficacy of negative emission technologies, which may further worsen the scenario. Now, can anybody explain the negative? What is negative emission technology here?
Basically, technologies which for which if you like like solar, if you manufacture, there is a input, like for manufacturing you need electricity and all that for soldering, etc. So it is the amount of input CO2 it takes and the output it saves. So basically it has to be more.
Yeah, see, I'll explain what is this negative emission technology. Okay, the negative emission technology is simple. It is the taking out of carbon, okay, CO2 from the atmosphere. Now there are a lot of methods through which you can take out. Okay, now I'll explain some of the examples. Okay, it is not been written over here. One is this ocean iron fertilization. Do you know something called LoHaFex? LoHaFex.
Yeah, it was a project.
It's an Indian initiative. Okay, see, negative emission technologies. Look here. Taking out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. See, CO2 is a GHG, right? So if you take out CO2 from excessive CO2 from the atmosphere, the warming will be less, right? So how do we do that? One is this ocean iron fertilization, OIF. Okay, LoHaFex. What do you know about LoHaFex?
Some like iron is put in the ocean and more amount of this what ocean grows. So they
See, I'll explain. Okay, so LoHaFex. Okay, I'll explain what is ocean iron fertilization. Okay, so see, iron is put into the upper level of ocean. Okay, so there is more algal bloom. So there is more growth of phytoplankton. Okay, so when there is when there is significant growth of phytoplankton, it will help in absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. So this is the whole idea of OIF, ocean iron fertilization. Okay.
So is this a new concept or old concept?
No, this is in a research phase right now. We are experimenting with it, not implement on a large scale.
Okay.
Okay.
OIF came in which year? 2016 or 15?
No. It's not. It's research is being done. Okay.
It's a old concept.
It's an old concept. It's not new one. Research is being done. Okay. So one India is doing. India has an institute called LOHAFEX. I think it's with Germany. Okay. I'm not sure. I'll confirm it tomorrow. It's with Germany. You put iron nails into the ocean, okay, and there is this growth of phytoplanktons, which helps in absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. Okay, since there is growth of phytoplanktons, okay, there will be more growth of marine animals also. They will also absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. This is the whole concept of OIF, that is ocean iron fertilization. Okay, so this is a negative emission technology. But what is written over here? Concerns over the need for efficacy of negative emission technologies, which may further worsen the scenario. Now, we do not exactly know how these negative emission technologies work. Okay, but scientists, the environment experts are saying that no, this is an effective methodology technology to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. Now, what is this thing? Since we are not yet sure, it's in a research phase, we are not yet sure what impact will it have on the environment. Okay, so this is also a challenge. Okay, another negative carbon technology is CCS. Do you know CCS, carbon capture and sequestration?
Yes, sir.
That is the same thing. Okay, now if you read the newspaper last year, there was a news that the carbon, okay, especially the low quality carbon, okay, it will be turned into gas in underground only, and it will be absorbed through the pipes. Okay, so this is also an important step, how there will be less emission of carbon into the atmosphere. See, gas is a very cleaner fuel, right? So there will be no mining of carbon. The carbon will there is no mining of coal. The coal will be turned into gas underground, and it will be sucked from the pipe. Okay. Now come to the next point. Developed countries pushing for mitigative technologies, whereas developing countries support adaptive technologies. Now this is also a conflict between developed and developing countries. Okay, which is also a challenge. Now, what are the mitigative technologies? Biofuels, gas technologies, green technology, etc. Now, see, why developed countries are focusing on mitigative technologies? Why there is more emphasis on biofuels, green technologies by the developed countries?
They have
Yes,
the funds.
this commercial expert. Okay, since they have developed these biofuels, which are very advanced stage, green technologies, so they want to sell it to the developing countries. Okay, but what the developing countries are focusing, countries like India, which do not have the resources to buy those technologies, they are focusing more on rainwater harvesting technologies. Okay, which is quite cheap as compared to the green technologies.
So India is also doing its bit in this biofuels and green tech.
See, India is not the only country right here, right? There are a lot of countries in the sub-Saharan Africa. What about them? They cannot afford those green technology, right? But they can easily afford this rainwater harvesting technologies. Okay, so the question is not about only India. There are more than 100 countries. Okay, like-minded countries. The whole concept of North versus South, right? In climate change debate. So a lot of countries in the South. Okay, the least developed countries. So the argument is made in the whole concept. Okay, whole perspective, not considering India only. Now come to the next point. Green technologies issues. Developing countries are unwilling to transfer green technologies or waiver IPR rights to assist developing countries. Now, can anybody explain this?
So basically, so they have developed the technology.
Yeah.
So if they want developing countries to buy them, but they are not willing to share it free of cost or just transfer it without any cost. And if
They want to make money out of it.
That's true. Okay, so this is also an important challenge. Unless and until the developed countries, okay, developed country reduces the cost of green technologies or give IPR rights to the developing countries, how the developing countries manage to limit the contribution to climate change. This is also an important point. Since the developing countries are far advanced, they have developed the technologies to fight climate change, but they are not willing to share it at a very low cost, or they are not willing to give away the IPR rights. Okay, the companies of developing countries. So this tussle is also very important conflict in the whole issue. Okay, now domestic manufacturing initiatives which stresses on indigenous technology development is facing opposition in the WTO. Did you read about the WTO verdict last year on India's NSM, National Solar Mission?
Yes, sir.
Like it said no to India's NSM, the domestic content requirement which was there in India's National Solar Manufacturing Policy. Okay, right? It declared it null and declared null, right, last year. So this whole concept about the whole concept is that only. See, what does India's NSM does? India's NSM stresses on development of domestic manufacturing companies, right? It says that certain parts of panels and modules will be India's in the solar energy sector, but the developed countries opposes that, right? So this is also an important challenge, since the indigenous initiatives are not able to take off because of the policy of free trade, okay, in WTO, right? Now come to the next point, agriculture. This NSA thing, WTO thing, and National Solar Mission and WTO will discuss in another topic, okay? Now come to the next point, agriculture. See, agriculture is also considered as an element which emits a lot of greenhouse gases, okay, mainly methane, right? The marshy lands, the wetlands in which especially rice cultivation is done, it also emits a lot of methane. But you cannot limit agriculture, right? You cannot restrict agriculture, especially in developing countries. If the world says India that you have to restrict the level of your agriculture, India would definitely say no, because a lot of people are dependent on agriculture, right? But agriculture is one of the major contributor to greenhouse gases, to climate change, to global warming. Okay, and it also surrounds around the food security of developing countries. Since the whole concept of agriculture is related to food security, there is a high possibility that the developing countries are not going to reduce their agriculture level, right? The production that is being done in these countries, they are not going to reduce it, because a lot of countries earn their forex through import of agriculture commodities. Plus is the question about food security also. Now I'll just tell you, in food security you must be knowing about WTO food security and all those things, right? We'll discuss it in later classes when any relevant topic or relevant article comes on it. Okay, so that the whole thing about WTO, National Solar Mission, and the TFA which was signed last year, okay, WTO TFA, trade facilitation agreement, all things will be clear there only. Since the Green Revolution, no path-breaking research into increasing productivity has been conducted, and rather HIV seed are facing opposition in countries like India. So this is also an important thing. Okay, so these are the major challenges. Now, if you want to make agriculture more productive, there will be more use of HIV seeds. Okay, but if you know the whole debate around Monsanto and all, so these are also facing a lot of opposition from the government, from the civil society also. So now, if agriculture is not made effective, okay, if the productivity does not increase, so obviously the amount of land that will be cultivated will be higher, and there will be more emission of methane, right? So which also finally adds to the climate change. So see, hence, although the Paris Agreement is a landmark agreement in terms of laying out a roadmap post 2020, its success will depend heavily on ancillary factors such as technology transfer, IPR issues, change in consumption pattern, etc. So you can conclude your answer with this. Okay, like this is a good conclusion. But For writing a good conclusion, first you must have a good body. Okay, so the demands of the question, all the features of climate change, all the climate change agreement that was conducted in Paris. Okay, all the features, proper features you must write, plus what are the challenges that we discuss right now. Okay, now come to the next thing, that there are certain other assumptions also, like why 1.5 degree cannot be achieved. Okay, now allowing voluntary emission cuts according to their capability, this is the one we discussed. Okay, concrete quota, right? Now next thing, past trends of failure like Kyoto Protocol, Copenhagen Conference. See, this Copenhagen Conference plus Kyoto Protocol. Okay, these are the two major environment conventions. But what was decided in those two conventions also, it took a lot of time to be implemented, and still the whole thing that was told there, it has not been implemented till now. Okay, even the Kyoto Protocol, it kicked off after 8 years. The Copenhagen Conference, after Copenhagen Conference there was this GCA, Green Climate Fund, which was to be created, but till now it has not been created. So what is the possibility that all the things that were told in Paris will be achieved after 2020? Okay, so this whole, the way things have happened, okay, it gives a sense of it gives a sense of, not exactly, but yes, will these things be achieved? Okay, right. So this is also important. Okay, now like how history has been. Now the next is tendency to expect more from other nations rather than self commitment. This is also simple. Okay, now there are certain other reasons also. See, I told you now, in by 2021 and by the end of this century, okay, there is this certain climate experts say that the temperature might rise to 2.7 degree higher than the pre-industrial level. Okay, there are certain studies. Even I think the IPCC also said this in its AR5. Now the NDCs that have been given by these countries. Okay, if we go by that NDC, and if that those NDCs are not implemented, okay, the temperature might rise to 2.7 degree. So more efforts needs to be done. Okay, now economic development, yes, no country is going to relinquish its economic development so easily. So this is also an important point. See, developing countries need more fossil fuels to have potable water, commercial technologies, and low mortality rates. Similarly, developing countries are adamant on prevailing lifestyles. Okay, they do not want to relinquish their lifestyles. Developing countries, they have a lot to do. Okay, they have a lot to do for their population, right? So this whole concept of economic development, it also like, it makes it difficult for the Paris Agreement to succeed. Okay. Now next thing, aviation and shipping industries. See, aviation and shipping industries are also emerging major polluters. If you see last year, okay, last year there was this talk about limiting the emissions from the aviation industry, the aircraft that take off, okay, the that flies. Okay, so India also said no, we are not going to do this, because the developed countries, they have already developed their aviation sector, but India has not yet developed. India is developing country. Okay, especially in case of aviation sector. So India is also saying no, we are not going to limit the emission of carbon from aviation sector, right? So aviation sector, shipping and industries, these are also emerging as major contributors to carbon emission. Now poorly defined means poorly solved. High, see, if we reduce a lot of CO2 from the atmosphere, okay, which is also an important element for plants, so this also creates a problem at times. Okay, and scientific reality, climate change is a complex, hence forecasting future is beyond our capability. This is also important. This is why certain policy, okay, and certain climate policy experts are saying that we are not observing climate change. Like there is whole this thing about climate change. Is it real or is it a hoax? Okay, if, even Trump is also trying to pull out of. There is a talk that he might pull out of this Paris Agreement. Okay, right. So there is whole uncertainty about whether climate change is a real concept or is it like a creation of somebody, right? And it's very difficult to predict because there needs to be there is a need for highly developed models, okay, to predict climate change, which is not yet developed, which is in a very research phase, right? So sixth point, climate catastrophe replaced by economic devastation. Encouraging solar, wind energy and electronic vehicles is not commercially viable. Why? Because these technologies needs a lot of research, needs a lot of R&D, okay, and even after R&D, the commercial the companies are not going to sell it for free, right? So it involves a huge economic cost, this technology, okay. The incorporation of this technology is not commercially feasible at this stage, and the developed countries are not going to share it free of cost. Hence, see, there are certain alternative solutions also mentioned over here. Mitigation strategies, more forest things, okay. There needs to be more afforestation, reforestation, more creation of forests on specifically wastelands. Now, adaptation technologies helping low-lying countries to erect barriers and canals against rising water levels. This is a possible step for the coastal countries, okay, the island countries. Technological fix, geoengineering to reflect some sunlight away. Now, what is this geoengineering? Researchers, or shall we say the climate experts, they say that if we place mirrors, okay, in the lower atmosphere, it would reflect sunlight, okay. Now this uh, there are certain things about aerosols, okay, like spraying of aerosols, that cloud seeding, right? Cloud seeding is a different thing. Aerosols, okay.
Cooling effect.
Yes, cooling effects, it reflects our sunlight, okay. And next is nuclear power plants, okay. Nuclear is a very low, nuclear is a slow emission, okay, and nuclear power plants could be implemented in the developing countries also, okay, because it's a clean fuel. See, though difficult tasks, but nations must keep their personal interests aside and strive and cooperate with each other to achieve it. This is also a conclusion. Like, these were the additional points, okay, that you can mention in their in your answers. And the point, there were challenges that we also discussed, okay. So the idea of this article is to make you aware about what is climate change also, okay. We discussed what is climate change, what is the Paris Agreement on climate change, okay, what are the challenges that are in front of Paris agreements to be achieved, okay. For making Paris Agreement successful, these were the challenges that needs to be overcome, okay. And these are certain additional points also, okay, like 2.7 degree centigrade plus other things also, and there are solutions also that are mentioned over here. So this article will give you a whole idea about climate change, Paris Agreement, solutions, challenges, everything, okay. So any point in any difficulty in understanding anywhere?
So, sir, what are the if we can sum up, what are the basic features of Paris Agreement in 2 or 3 points? The first one could be this
See,
temperature one.
First one could be temperature one, okay. Next one, you
Then
say
you can have this fund 100 billion.
100 billion fund, okay. Stock take 5 years INDC, okay, right. CPDR, RC and equity, okay. Fifth point वो हो गया. Okay, it's not only mitigation centric but considers sort of other elements like adaptation, loss and damage, finance, technology development and transfer, etc. And it also asks the developing countries countries to contribute voluntarily, okay. You see 8-9 points, important points are there, okay. So once you revise, you will be able to write a perfect answer. Now your confusion clear, like you said, nah, not major initially. And what about you? And any difficulty in understanding? You can ask anything, okay, like if you want, you are having any difficulty, okay. Now let us come to the next article.
Next question.
Let us come to the third question, TPP 1. So you people got the idea of climate change, right? Climate change, Paris Agreement. Any difficulty? Nothing. Come to the TPP 1.
Sir, can we have a like note sort of form where like a tabular information we can have
For
for like these
conventions.
conventions? It's very difficult because there isn't a one place we can like
See,
convention, place, important things, features like it'll be easy for us to
remember.
Yes, if it's possible on your side. Like a sort of tabular form of these agreements or conventions.
I'll come to this maybe tomorrow or maybe
whenever you are free.
Sure. In the next class only, okay? Maybe maybe next week, okay? I'll speak to Nitin sir about this whole thing and I'll come to you after that, okay?
Because these things will come till
Yes, I understand.
So we can have a tabular thing that will be very good.
Sure. I'll try to do that also. Now come to the yes, these conventions are important, okay? And I'll suggest you a simple way. Whenever you come across any convention in the newspaper, just try to find more about it. Even if I do not give you tabular form, okay? If you come around any convention, just see the same for prelims, okay? I'll just give you a simple way. If you're reading newspaper, okay, and you find I do not know this, just try to find something more about that. In environment, I'll say how this is very important in environment section, because environment section 15 to 20 questions it usually comes, okay? So any convention, any wildlife park, any river, okay, any animal which is of importance, any IUCN initiative, all these international organizations, okay, WWF, try to find more about it, little more, okay, little more, not much, 2-3 lines more. That will give you an edge when you are preparing, okay? And your thing, I will answer it maybe maybe next week. Like I'll see how I can do it, okay? But yes, conventions are important. Almost there, I remember more than 20-25 conventions which are really important, okay?
Like in UPSC, a question comes that two the options you'll be having. The third one would be the bone of contention.
Yes. 2 you might know, the third one you might not know, okay? I'll suggest you do this, okay? For prelims 2000 from 2014, 15, 16, solve these 3 question papers. Try to know what you know from them. Try to find out which you do not know. Just try to read the pattern, okay? It will really help you, and it will help you in creating a way through which you can prepare in a more effective way, okay? If you see newspaper or if you see the question paper, okay, now if you read any question, see this thing appeared in newspaper, especially search in the Hindu, Google the Hindu, type the Hindu. If you do not know anything, okay, suppose there is a question in prelims, okay, and you do not know that, so type in Hindu and see where did it appear and why did I skip it. It will give you a proper perspective how you should prepare, okay? Proper perspective. Google type the Hindu, for example, Montreal Protocol. You do not know about Montreal Protocol, the Hindu. So you will see Montreal Protocol in last in 2016 only, more than 10 to 20 times Montreal Protocol has appeared in the newspaper, okay? And you missed it. You did not read about it. You did not try to find more about it. Montreal Protocol, type the Hindu. Now, if you want, go to Montreal Protocol only in its official website. You'll get more about it. Yeah, this is a very important, simple way of preparing, okay? But yes, I'll get back to you with whatever you have asked, okay? Now come to the next question. The Trump administration has decided to pull out of the TPP agreement, discussing the possible implications from this move on the region, examining the possible impacts on India. Now, can anybody tell your answers? Did you write your answer? Why not you write?
Sure, I have less idea.
Less idea.
So I better to listen to you.
Okay, you? Did you write?
So I have like vague idea, but my hands were not good.
See, when you're preparing now, you must prepare well, okay? Because prelims is coming. After prelims, you'll hardly have 2.5 3 months for your mains, okay? And a lot of revision needs to be done in that period only. Plus your optionals. So TPP important agreement because TPP in news for way too long, okay? For I am hearing TPP for past 3 4 years, and I am having fair idea of all everything what all is going on in TPP, okay?
Even in Indian economic survey last year,
Yes,
they
even
mentioned
in Indian
boxes they mention.
okay. In Indian economic survey, you must have read about since India is not a part of TPP, what are the possible implications of India being left out of TPP? Okay, that is given in economic survey. Did you write? आपने लिखा?
First question.
And you did not write a TPP one. Okay, tell me your answer.
Half I was able to.
Okay. Okay.
TPP is a trade agreement between 12 major countries on Pacific coast. Recently, USA decided to pull itself out of it due to its view on its national interest. USA pulling out of the agreement will have serious implications for the region. Some of them are as under. First, delaying of the agreement or ending of the agreement. Till now, TPP was ratified by just one country. USA was the biggest player in the agreement. USA pulling out may jeopardize the whole agreement. More trade barriers may emerge. TPP would have ensured that less number of trade barriers are in place. More trade restrictions would emerge for countries exporting to the USA. Third, China taking over USA place in agreement. China was kept out of TPP till now. Leadership may pass to China. China may link it to its One Belt, One Road initiative. Fourth, new emerging issues may remain unsolved. Example, fisheries. More I was.
Okay. See, okay, you have made an attempt. That is good, but now through the article, okay, I'll give you overall idea of what TPP is actually. Okay, when I was doing my MPhil, I had done this juxtaposition of TPP and RCEP. It was in my project, okay. So I had a very good idea of what is TPP exactly, what is RCEP exactly, okay. So MPhil in from the Center for Indo-Pacific Studies, JNU. So come to the article on TPP. See now the 45th US President Trump has already signed an executive decision that US will be pulling out of TPP. Okay, so in that context only we'll be discussing the whole idea of TPP and what could be the possible implications of US pulling out of TPP. What could be the possible implications on India also? Okay. So since you told about economic survey thing, in economic survey the things are given about what could be the implications of India not being part of TPP. Okay, that will be discussing in some other class. Now I'll be discussing this the question plus this article. Okay. Now see what is TPP. See TPP is a mega trade block. Okay, trade deal. Okay, and it comprises 12 countries of the Pacific Rim nations. Okay. See, it was signed in February 2016, representing roughly 40% of world's economic output. Now, these 12 countries of TPP, okay, they are responsible for producing 40% of world economic output. Okay, so see how big a trade block it is. It's called mega trade block. Okay. Now, TPP is there. We have something called RCEP, Regional Economic Cooperation Partnership. Okay, that is something else. Now see, the pact aimed to deepen economic ties between these nations, slash tariffs, and fostering trade to boost growth. Members had also hoped to foster a close relationship on economic policies and regulation. Now, what is this trade bloc? This is to ease trade, okay, to facilitate trade between the member countries, okay, by adopting various standards, okay, by adopting various rules, by adopting various ways of doing trade, okay, various easier rules of doing trade, okay, to deepen economic ties, okay, to facilitate easier movement of goods, capital, services, etc. Okay, investments. The agreement was signed so that it could eventually create a single market, something like that of EU. Okay, so see, EU is a group of 28 countries, right? 27 to 28 countries. Okay, so like EU only, this trade bloc is created. Okay, to facilitate trade between these 12 countries. Okay, so that a single market could be created consisting of these 12 countries. But this TPP has not yet come into force because the countries have not yet ratified it. Okay, now who are the members of the TPP? This is a prelims question. Okay, they might ask you in prelims. It came also. Okay, which are the 12 countries? Say 5 Asian countries. Which are the 5 Asian countries?
Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore,
Brunei. Okay. See, Singapore is there. See, five Asian countries. Okay. Two North American, Chile and Peru from South America. See, 3 North American, Canada, Mexico, and and America, and 2 from Australasia, that is New Zealand and Australia. So it's like 3, 2 to 5. You can easily remember it for prelims also. 2 from South America, 3 from North America, 5 from Asia, and 2 from Australasia, Oceania. Okay, so these are the 12 members of TPP. They have come together to sign this mega trade bloc. Now come to the next point. Now what does the TPP represent? Like how big is TPP and what exactly is TPP? Okay, we'll focus on that. See, TPP, these 12 countries, when we combine their population, it comes to 800 million. Okay, and 800 million is very big population considering the amount of trade that will be done between all these 12 countries. Okay, so you can have a market of around 800 million to serve. Okay, so this is a very huge deal considering consisting of about 40% of the world's economic output. Okay, almost double that of European Union single market. See, European Union 28 countries. Okay, but this 12 countries trade bloc is having a population of around 800 million people. So facilitating trade, facilitating commerce for 800 million people is what is their goal. Okay, now this 12 nation bloc is already responsible for 40% of world trade. These are some of the important statistics which you must remember while you are writing answer for TPP. Okay, TPP is a trade bloc constituting around 800 million people, doing around 40% of world trade, right? So see, the deal was seen as a remarkable achievement given the very different approaches and standards within the member countries, including environmental protection, workers' right, regulatory coherence, not to mention the special protections that some countries have for certain industries. Now, what is this trade deal? Okay, but let us see what is this mega block. So see, these 12 countries, they have different standards of doing trade. Okay, now some countries have very restrictive borders, some countries have very open borders. Okay, now if you see WTO, so WTO is also like that. Okay, what does WTO say? WTO works for better way of doing trade. Okay, like more free trade between nations to make trade easy. Okay, like hassle free trade between all this country. Okay, but but in WTO also we have like 191 countries. Okay, in WTO, and they have different rules of doing trade. Okay, but what does WTO strive for? It strive for
Access for markets.
access for market. Okay, easier rules and regulations for doing trade among all the nations, right? In TPP also, see, 12 countries but different standards. Because why different standards? the countries that are part of TPP are at different stage of development, right? Different stage of development. Their companies are also different stage of development. A US company cannot be equalized with a company from a country like Vietnam, right? If let us say if India is made open, like the borders of India are made open, obviously the foreign companies will invade and in that context the Indian companies will perish because they could offer more cheaper products, right? So in this context only, these different countries have different standards of doing trade. Like some countries are exploiting environment, okay, but the other countries are not doing that, okay. So see, member countries including environmental protection, workers right. So see, do you know that in few years back, in I guess 2 3 years back, okay, Nike company refused footballs that are made in Sialkot in Pakistan. If you read in the newspaper, why?
Labor,
Child labor, okay, because the standards of labor in Pakistan is not what the US company expects. The wages that are being paid to those laborers are not of the US standards, of the standards that the Nike company expects. Okay, and since these countries are poor, they cannot offer wages to the workers that the foreign companies expect, right? So the foreign company can easily say that since you are exploiting your labor, we are not going to buy products from you. And this is the same case in India's case also. Indian laborers are not paid higher wages, okay. The wages that are of international standards, the wages that a company in US is paying to their labor, right? So we have different rules regarding labor wages also, okay. So how do all these things get sorted out? Okay, so this is the whole idea of TPP, right? So see, the deal was seen as a remarkable achievement given the very different approaches and standards within the member countries, including environmental protection, workers' right, regulatory coherence, not to mention the special protection that some countries have given to certain industries. Okay, are you understanding this point? So see, the US pulling out will be seen as big blow for other nations that have signed up. So since US was the initiator, okay, since it was the initiative of US on, and it was on the saying of US that these 12 countries joined together, okay, for creating a rule-based market which will facilitate trade in a very better way, okay, which will take into consideration the different standards of labor, different standards of environmental protection in these countries, okay. But if US pulls out, then the whole idea of TPP gets shaken, right? So now come to the next point. What happens to TPP if the US pulls out? So are you understanding what is TPP? See, TPP is a trade block, okay, to make trade easier, to facilitate trade, investment, capitals, flow of human labor, services, okay, right? And it constitutes about 40% of world economic output plus 800 million population. That is a very big market to serve, big market to cater to, right? And it will also take, see, these environment the standards of environmental protection, okay. So if these 12 countries are members of TPP, it is expected that these 12 countries will have a very higher standard of environmental protection. So what is being done in US will be done in these countries also, okay. And if the products are made not in accordance to the environmental protection, obviously the products will not be sold, right? Okay, so these clauses, okay, these are some of the contentions clauses which the developed countries want to incorporate in WTO, and this is the same reason why India is saying no to these contentious elements, okay. And this is called WTO plus elements, okay, because these are not part of WTO, okay.
So what are WT plus?
WTO plus means, see, there are certain elements, see, there are certain rules in WTO, okay, but these rules are not part of WTO. For example, environmental protection, workers' right, okay, and the developed countries want to incorporate that, but India is saying no. If you are following newspaper properly, okay, right? Okay, India is more emphasizing on services for the freer movement of its service professionals, because India is good at that. We have uh, skilled laborers, right? Now, what happens to TPP if the US pulls out?
WTO plus is basically the things that WTO is not mentioned.
See, which are not part of
Part of
WTO, and the developed countries. See, that is a, like I told you, that is an additional concept. Okay, not needed here, but just for your understanding. These rules, okay, environmental protections, workers' right, okay, regulatory coherence, IPR, okay, these are not part of WTO. See, what happens to TPP if the US pulls out? To take effect, the deal would have had to be ratified by February 2020, February 2018 by at least 6 countries that account for 85% of group's economic output. So see, if the countries that are ratifying the deal, they are not coming up to 85% of the world's economic of the group's economic output, then the deal cannot be enforced, right? So if, let us say, let us assume that US is a major contributor to the economic output of the group. Now 60%, see, if the US pulls out, obviously the deal crumbles, the deal does not come into force. Okay, so there is a highly chance that if US pulls out of TPP may not fructify. Okay, TPP may not come into force. Okay, the US would need to be on board to meet the last condition. This is important. Some countries, including New Zealand, have suggested some sort of alternative deal may be possible without the US. Now, if now the work has already been done, okay. Now, if the US is pulling out at the last minute, obviously these 11 countries, they might come together. They might try to find a solution which will be an alternative deal to the TPP. Okay, excluding US, they might come out with a solution. Okay, they might come out propositions that yes, we will, if the US goes out, the other things that needs to be done. Okay, Australian, see, now when Trump said that Trump signed the executive decision to pull out of US TPP, Australia and Vietnam said that they would stick to the deal even without the leading party of the agreement. Okay, so now there's confusion between different countries. Okay, who are part of the deal. Some countries are saying yes, we want to go ahead. Some countries are saying no, we want an alternative deal. Okay, we want things to be revised. Okay, so see, Japan is also a leading country of the group, and Japan's prime minister says that a TPP without the US and its market of 250 million consumers would be meaningless. So can you relate things now? See, population constitute a very important component of market. Okay, so if you do not have a very bigger population, then obviously the level of trade would be low. So if US goes out, 250 million consumers goes out. Okay, and that is a very significant population to cater to, right? So this is why this statistics of 800 million population matters. This is why the statistics of 40% of world's economic output matters. Okay, so see, 12 countries are coming together and they are producing around 40% of world's economic output. That is a very significant figure. Okay, now what would be the benefits of TPP? Those in favor say that this trade deal will unleash new economic growth among countries involved. Okay, obviously, when there will be more production, there will be more consumption. Okay, more easier way of doing trade. Okay, and more economic growth will take place. Right? It is being said that the TPP has high potential to promote economic growth and improve people's living standards by facilitating the free cross-border movement of key factors of economic activity such as goods, people, money, and information. As I told you, it will facilitate the movement of easier movement of uh, goods, services, capital, human investments, right? So obviously, it is going to improve people's life. When there is economic activity, there is improvement in people's life. Okay. Failure to bring the TPP into force would be a great loss to not only the TPP countries such as Japan and US, but also the global economy, they argue. Okay, so obviously the spillover effects of TPP will be seen throughout the world, and if TPP does not materialize, the world will be not getting all those benefits, right? Okay, so same thing. Now come to the. Are you understanding? Everybody, you? Kuch problem हो तो एक मैं ask, okay? And what about you?
Yes.
Getting? So hope things are getting clear now. Now come to the next point. Why Trump decided to pull out of TPP? Okay. So if you follow Trump's election, he continuously said in his election that the first thing that I'll be doing after coming into power is I'll pull US out of TPP. Okay, there are other things also he said, but this was his major election agenda. Okay, so Trump had repeatedly criticized the trade deal during his elections campaign and had vowed to withdraw from it if he came to power. Okay, according to Trump, such deals hurt American workers and undercut US economy. See, there is this easier movement of service professionals. Okay, and and he says that it harms US employment growth. Okay, he says that the immigrants take away job. The service professionals who are coming from other countries, they take away the jobs of the Americans. This is one of the reasons why he wants to pull out of TPP. And now come to the next point. His stance on trade is protectionist. He has vowed to shield Americans from the effects of globalized trade by slapping hefty tariffs on cheap Chinese imports of up to 45%. This is also important point. Uh, Goods coming from other countries into America, so the production of the American companies are going down. Okay, and plus these countries are able to make effective products. Okay, for example, let us say China. China is the manufacturing engine of the world. Okay, manufacturing engine of the world, which is uh, sending goods to almost all countries. Okay, China have trade relations with more than 150 countries of the world. Okay, so if Chinese products are so cheaper than the Americans, obviously the American companies are going to suffer. So this idea of protectionism, okay, this is what Trump is emphasizing on. Okay, and this is the reason why he wants to pull out of TPP for America, for saving American jobs, for saving American companies. Okay, next point, and this is what he said during his election campaign. See, he considered TPP as death blow for the American factories. Okay, and it gave up all our economic leverage to an international commission that would put the interest of foreign countries above our own. So this is what Trump was saying during his election campaign. Okay, so are you understanding the whole idea of TPP? How it is going to facilitate trade between all these 12 countries? Okay, what are the WTO plus standards that it is considering, that it is taking into account? Okay, now come to the next section, possible implications of the move. Now see, US is one of the important player in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, in the Indo-Pacific region, the Southeast Asian region. Okay, the region around South China Sea. Okay, so see, economically, Washington would lose out not just on the not just on the potential gains from any free trade agreement, but on a valuable opportunity to write the rules of 21st century trade, including in areas where it would break new grounds like state-owned enterprises and digital economy. See, if US was there, okay, so if US is a part of the trade deal, and if the trade deal is doing good, so obviously other countries would want to be a part of the trade deal only. Okay, for example, say China is a part of this region, right? And many other countries are also part of this trade deal. But if China sees that yes, this trade deal is doing fine, and US power is increasing in the region, so obviously China, countries like South Korea, countries like India will try to be part of this trade deal. Okay, but if US pulls out, obviously the lead that US could have in the region, okay, the lead, the power that US could have in the 21st century trade order, it will be deprived of that trade power. Okay, this is an important implication of the move. Now come to the next point. TPP, unlike regular bilateral FTAs, has open architecture, which means Washington would have been able to attract new members over time and generate a race to the top in terms of trade pacts regionally and even globally. This point is self-explanatory. So see, uh, if the trade deal materialized, okay, so there was this talk that China is welcome, US said that China is welcome to come to the bloc if it wants, okay, even though Chinese were resistant, even India was resistant, even though India was also invited to be a part of this deal, okay, right, but the Indian government said no at these challenges because they want to have this research on it, how it's going to do, what would be the impacts on India, okay. So if the trade bloc succeeds, obviously it will attract newer members, okay, right, so this is not going to happen. Now we'll consider strategic impact. Strategically, TPP's failure will reinforce doubt about American credibility in the region amid a rising China. It creates a political and economic vacuum that China is eager to fill, offering a boost for beleaguered US manufacturing regions while damaging American prestige in India. Can you understand this point? So, do you know the thing about the rebalancing, pivot to Asia policy of Obama and everything, right, in IR?
What, sir?
Pivot to Asia policy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The whole idea of America dominating this Indo-Pacific region, countering China and all. Okay, so this is the strategic factor. Okay, if US pulls out, so obviously the countries of the region. Okay, and since China has a proximity to these countries, to the countries of Southeast Asia. Okay, Southeast Asia is considered as one of the
Trade, commercial.
yes, commercial region of the world. Okay, they're fast developing commercial region. For example, the East Asian tigers, you know this concept and all. So if US pulls out, obviously the impact of US in the region is likely to come down. Okay, not in case of military impact. Let us not go into those aspects because it's a different discussion. But yes, if US is not part of the deal, okay, and China being near to these countries, a manufacturing hub, okay, a supplier of goods to these countries with its newfound capital, okay, China's newfound capital. China is having forex of more than $3,000 billion, okay. So obviously and with initiatives like AIIB, okay, so these countries will look towards China. So obviously the the whole of US in this region is likely to go down. Okay, that is the strategic impact of if US pulls out of TPP. See, it will also undermine Washington's efforts to strengthen the capabilities of its Asian allies and partners who desire both diversification in their foreign relations as well as reforms domestically that TPP would have induced. So, see, if TPP was implemented, obviously these countries, okay, those who are part of the deal, would have made changes in the way their domestic companies are functioning, okay, in the way their domestic production is taking place. But if US pulls out, okay, and if the deal does not materialize, so obviously they are not going to make all those changes, which are far advanced, okay, which will be required in the future, okay. So this weakens them, okay, and the US will be less interested in strengthening the position of their allies like Japan, allies like Malaysia, allies like Philippines, okay, where US since very long have a strong hold. Are you understanding it? So next point, it will also make US Asia policy look unbalanced since TPP was the major plank in the economic realm of Obama administration's so-called rebalance, even though they were less significant initiatives as well as they did not get much attention. So this US pivot to Asia policy, the policy of rebalancing which Obama initiated, that might get weakened, okay, if US pulls out, because see what makes US to deploy its military capabilities in the region because it wants to save its economic interests, right? Economic interests which it is confronting from a rising China. Okay, so and TPP was a major part of it because it was initiated by Obama, considering his pivot to Asia policy, considering his rebalance policy. Okay, so that might get weakened if US pulls out of TPP, and if TPP does not materialize. See, China would look forward to conclude the RCEP, a 16-nation pact being led by Southeast Asian nations that lacks some of the environmental and labor protections. Okay, labor protections that Obama negotiated in TPP. Okay, see, the major difference between RCEP and TPP, TPP includes many WTO plus elements. Okay, for example, environment, labor, and etc. But RCEP is more flexible. RCEP is more easier. Okay, RCEP does not bind the member countries to these standards. WTO plus standards. Okay, environment, labor, IPR. Okay, so there is a likelihood that now China will push RCEP because RCEP is little easier to conclude. Okay, and if countries are if since these five countries are a major member of TPP, now if TPP does not come into force, okay, so these 10 ASEAN nations plus 6 countries, South Korea, Japan, China, India, New Zealand, Australia, these are the 16 members of ASEAN. Okay, so they will try to see, they will increase the speed of arriving at a consensus for concluding the RCEP because if one deal is not getting materialized, the other countries will try to focus on the next deal. Okay, and China is a major part of that. Okay, China is the initiator, China is pushing that deal. Okay, and that also gives China an edge over US in the region. Okay, the passage of RCEP would lead to the loss of market share among US industries that now export more than 5 billion in goods to Japan. So if RCEP comes into force and if TPP is not coming into force, okay, so obviously RCEP countries will be given more preference in Japan, and that would be lost to America because Japan is a natural ally of America. Next, come to the point. According to some experts, it's a giant gift to the Chinese because they now can pitch themselves as the driver of trade liberalization. Now, did you follow the WEF, World Economic Forum, which was recently held?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see what Xi Jinping told? Did you pay attention? Because I'll bring that here in this context. Okay. Now see, after the election, after the coming into power of Trump, okay. So since Trump is saying that he will be adopting protectionist measures, okay. Now that will be harmful for China, okay, if you understand, because China is the major exporter to US. Okay. Now if Trump is accepting protectionist measures, that will lead to loss to China. Okay. Now China is preaching for globalization. China is saying that no, you cannot have protectionist measures. Okay. Now it makes China a major pusher of the idea of globalization. Okay. And this is what Xi Jinping was referring to in his WEF summit speech. Did you follow that?
Yes,
Huh?
Yes,
Did you read in your newspaper?
yes, Indian Express.
Well, this was in the same context only. Now it is giving China a major voice in globalization because China is a manufacturing driven economy, right? So China wants to push its product, but if US adopts protectionist measures, that would be lost to China, okay? And if US is following something, other countries may also follow that. Understanding?
Even this was the first time the president came China.
Yeah.
Otherwise, juniors came.
See, so this is the whole idea, like how globalization affecting countries. Okay, how why China is coming now, why the president did not come earlier. Understanding the strategic impact, the economic impact. These
Also,
are
China is economy is it's crumbling.
not crumbling; it is getting slowed. Okay, obviously, if you have hit a target of more than 8%, okay, for certain years, obviously the country will take a time to come to that point again. Okay,
But China is talking about US. China itself is having a protectionist attitude. It doesn't allow goods from other countries to come into China.
that is not the case. That is not wholly the case. Okay.
on this. Like China doesn't allow products from other country to seek into its border.
It's not like full protection. It cannot be that way, because if that happens, then WTO comes in, right? It cannot have. So I do not really know the context in which you are saying. Okay. So see, China would look to bolster its relationship with traditional American allies like Malaysia and Philippines. These two countries are very much close to America, but if trade deal that does not materialize, obviously China will try to take them into its fold. Okay, more and more countries of Southeast Asia, especially after its project of AIIB. Okay, Asian Investment and what is the full form of AIIB?
Sir, Asian investment, yes, sir, investment bank. Infrastructure.
Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
Yes.
Okay. So did
Our article mention of India is not there.
India का भी आएगा ना? India is coming next page.
Okay.
So are you understanding it? TPP. Why America wants to pull out of TPP? What could be possible economic impacts are different, strategic impacts are different. Okay.
So was this asked previously?
No, not yet.
So potential question.
Not yet. Potential question, yes. Because TPP is in news for too long. Okay, like 3-4 years we have been reading about TPP. Okay. Now, why India is not part of TPP? Now, this is a new topic, whole topic. Okay. Why India is not a part of TPP? That was also covered in the economic survey last year also. Okay. Now, if you want to read, you can download the economic survey clearly written. What are the impacts on India being not a part of TPP? Okay.
Sir, are the questions in mains more related to challenges and opinion based, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
So it's two candidates can have different viewpoints.
Obviously, yes. See, it matters now from where you are reading, right? You cannot have an answer of your own. You must have read something, right? See, I gave you the question why you could not write, because you have not read properly, right? So it depends from where you are reading. Obviously, if someone is following one newspaper and the other person is following different newspaper, so obviously the perspectives are going to be different. The points are going to be different.
How can we have a balance?
There could be certain points which are common. Okay, balance. How can we have a balance? By reading to see, if you read on TPP, okay, since you are reading this, let us say from today, okay, from today till mains you will get enough articles on TPP. Okay, so I guess by continuously following the news, you will come to know by your own only. Yes, these are the things that are related to India. These are the things that are related to USA, because USA is a major player, and these are the things related to China, because China is also a major player. Understanding?
And moreover, impacts are altogether the same thing.
Altogether the same thing. How do you consider impacts? If a reason is important, okay. Now, why that reason is important? Because of economy. Because of economy, US has deployed a lot of military there. The 7th Fleet. If you know, in the Pacific, okay, US has its 7th Fleet. Okay, so why it is there? Because to safeguard its economic interest, to safeguard its strategic interest, and strategic interest comes from comes from economy. Then you have military bases over there. Okay, you have defense agreements with the countries. Okay, so this is the way you should try to think, try to write your answer. Okay, economic impacts, strategic impacts, political impacts. Now if you see last year question about industry, okay, in mains. Okay, so there were it was clearly asked what is the economic interest impact. Okay, what is the economic impact and what is the ecological impact.
Yes, sir.
Now, so see, industry is related to environment plus IR also. So in environment, in case they ask environmental impacts, ecological impacts. Okay, in case of IR, they ask political impacts plus economic impacts. So this is how you are supposed to relate. So this topic, okay, TPP is in paper 3. It could be a paper 3 question also. It could come in paper 1 also, because Indus Water Treaty came in paper 1. Okay, even though we can see that it is a more of a part of paper 3, or let us say paper 2 also. and the neighborhood relationship. Okay, right. So this TPP question it can come in economics. Okay, it can come in IR also. It can relate to India also. Why? What are the impacts on India since India is not a part of TPP? So see, you when you are reading something, especially in IR, okay, you must try to see what are the economic impacts, what are the political impacts, what are the strategic impacts. Okay, right. So this is the line of this should be a line of thinking. समझ मतलब understanding ना?
As a IR, like instead of books, we should rely more on the current thing.
Books you
Like if in case a person is not having a good background of IR.
for IR you don't really need a good background. For IR, if you are thorough with facts plus thorough with arguments, you can write good answers. Okay, and for arguments, a lot of articles come in newspaper. Almost all newspaper cover certain articles of IR every day. Okay,
So there is no need of a particular book that needs to be.
I believe there is no need of books.
I mean, we can Google a certain like.
Obviously, see from sources that you have been studying, you can follow that, no problem. For example, let us say in IR, okay, we are deviating from the topic. Okay, yesterday, like 2 days back, the Prince of Dubai was in India, right, for Republic Day celebration.
Yes.
So in that context, you must try to know
India UAE.
things about India UAE relationship. Okay, which are the pacts that have been signed. Okay, why India is focusing more on UAE. Okay, what is its agenda? Okay, what is its agenda in the Arab region? Okay, so in IR there's a line of thinking. Okay, what is the strategic advantage India could have by having a stronger relationship with the UAE? So all these things will be covering in IR classes. Okay. Now major implications for India. Walking out from TPP threatens the US strategy of rebalancing Asia, as we discussed it. Okay, which amounted to India-Japan-US security cooperation. So we have this stronger cooperation between India, US, and Japan. Okay, in this region, and we have this exercise called Malabar also. Do you know that? In prelim, that is important. Okay.
Yes.
Malabar exercise. There is something called Malabar. There is something called Milan. Okay. These are the exercises between the navies of this country. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of exercises. You must remember those for prelims. You must make a list of those exercises. Okay. Which are the bilateral exercises India is having? Air Force, military, navy, different exercises we are having. Okay. So see, this will force India, where US anchored its Asia Pacific policy, to rethink its Lucas initiative. Obviously, if US is not a part of such a large economic deal, it will certainly have impacts upon India's Lucas policy. Okay, India have to realign its Lucas policy. Next point, India was not a part of TPP, but it has been an important instrument of realpolitik for Washington and New Delhi as they sought to counter the rise of an assertive China without hurting their economic equations with the country. In the rebalancing of its resources in Asia Pacific, the US saw India's role as the linchpin of the strategy. See, US has always welcomed India to be a part of its security cooperation in the region. Okay, but if US is not coming economically to this region, obviously, as I told you, strategic factors are more related to economic factors. Okay, so India will need to frame its policy again. Maybe there will be certain changes in how it is going economically into the region. Okay. Now the US pivot to Asia and India's activist policies conflict, like they come together. Okay. Washington sees India as having a greater role in providing security and stability in the region. The two strategies have been shaping the security order in the region as India was reinvigorating its ties with Asian powers like Japan and Australia that has rattled China greatly. So can you consider this equation? US, China, Japan, they are not on the one hand, but they are on the same side. If you see Australia also and China on the other side. Okay. So can you think about the economic implications, the strategic implications surrounding China? If US is there, okay, so there could be an assurance from US to India, okay. But if US is not there in it, trade block which is so large, obviously the impact gets reduced. Okay, now come to the next point. Now India should not be complacent because of the current uncertainty surrounding TPP. We must fully understand the implication of the various TPP disciplines and how we should strategize ourselves in response to very many ways that can impact us. Okay, so see, TPP is not yet into force. Okay, India is not a part of TPP. TPP has not yet been ratified. Okay, so still we are not sure what are the possible implications India could have being not part of TPP. Okay, and what are the possible implications if US pulls out of TPP, since it is still in nascent phase. Okay, still it is in consideration that that treaty has not been ratified. Okay, so in future only we can determine what are the possible implications, and accordingly India will take steps. Okay, TPP, while no boon for India, offered the best hope for a more openly competitive international trade order from which India, with its competitive wages and underutilized potential, still has possibly the most to gain. Okay, so see, if India is not part of TPP, if China is not part of TPP, okay, and other five nations of ASEAN also not a part of TPP, plus countries like South Korea is not a part of TPP, which is a major player in the region. Okay, so if TPP is not materializing, obviously these countries would have pushed for RCEP. Okay, right, and India has a major role in that because India has got a lot of skilled professionals. Indian wages are also low, so that would have given advantage to India. Okay, now let us come to the conclusion. So are you understanding? I hope you have a fair idea of what is TPP now.
So can you explain the last one?
Which one? TPP, while no boon for India, offered the best hope for a more openly competitive international trade order. Okay, so उसको अभी ऐसे समझते हैं अपन. See, TPP not get into force. Okay, if TPP was into force, if TPP will come into force, and if India sees that TPP is working fine and we can raise our standards to the standards that are demanded by TPP. Okay, so obviously if India becomes a part of TPP, so that would have given advantage to India because India have better skilled professionals. Indian wages are low. Getting it? Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
So see, there is now hesitation in India's uh, policy circle uh, relating to TPP. Okay, if TPP is functioning well, if the member countries of TPP, for example, let us say Vietnam, Malaysia, these countries are less developed than India. Okay, in certain sectors, and where India has an edge. For example, let us say IT industry. Okay, so if TPP is functioning well, obviously India can consider to be a part of TPP, which will have positive uh, effects on its economy only. समझ आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Like for getting into TPP,
Yes, yes.
India will have to come up to a certain threshold level.
Yes, yes.
So that will be advantageous to
See,
India.
we have not adopted the WTO plus standards. Okay, but see, if these countries adopt WTO plus standards like environmental protection, wages, labor wages, etc., and if it is benefiting them, and if India by adopting these standards could become as cost competitive as these countries. Okay, if India could produce goods which are as competitive as these countries by adopting, if these countries can produce goods, okay, which are competitive, then why not India? Why India cannot produce? Okay, so see, if TPP is performing well, let us say 5 years down the line after the signing of TPP, okay, if TPP is performing well, if it is having a positive impact on the economic level of these member countries. Okay, so India being a country which is near to the region of TPP, India can also apply for TPP. And since TPP has an open architecture, it is open to all. Whoever satisfies the norms, satisfies the standards, it can apply for it. Okay, so India can also gain economically from the trade deal. Did you understand? So in conclusion, it's written that So since Trump has decided to pull out, but we have to wait and see how things goes on. Okay, like if TPP comes into force without America, with America, if with America, if later on India joins it or no, what are the policies that China is going to adopt if TPP comes into force? So these are the things that will be seen in the future only. Fair idea?
So is TPP inter-regional partnership or inter-governmental partnership?
It's a region, like it's a trade bloc of Pacific Rim nations. Okay. Now, if you see the geography of TPP, you will see that all the countries are surrounding the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Rim nations. It's written over there in the beginning. You see, right? So, had a fair idea about TPP. Okay. Magnitude of TPP: 800 million population, 40% economic growth. Okay. What it actually represent? WTO plus standards, which I told you. You don't need to write WTO plus standard. You can write also, no problem. Okay. Like the advanced stages, which are not included in WTO. Okay. Now, from India's perspective, why? Because why India not part of TPP? We'll discuss that in different class. Okay. Where WTO things comes, when the TPP thing come. Okay. In context of India. Okay. Any doubts?
So like US has decided to pull out.
Pull out.
So can it be a member of it in future?
He's decided to pull out, but
Like is there any sort of clause?
it's not the final decision. Okay.
Okay.
It's not the final decision. Now, if suddenly Trump, suddenly, let us say tomorrow, okay,
He decides to join, then he can join.
obviously, it has not yet pulled out. It has decided to pull out. It has said he will pull out. Okay.
Like
Now,
if the US has pulled out, the next day the country can join.
obviously, see, 60% it controls 60%. Okay, and US can join. Let us say US can join any trade deal. Okay, any trade deal without US. Even if, let us say tomorrow RCEP is concluded. Okay, RCEP, which does not include US. Now China is open to US. Okay, China has said that US can also join, but at a later stage. Now US has not yet joined because Obama was pushing its own TPP agenda. Okay, and TPP was like a TPP was a trade deal which was against, not against, but yes, in contention to RCEP. Okay, China's initiative is RCEP. The America's initiative is TPP. Okay, right? So Obama was pushing its own TPP agenda. Now for RCEP, RCEP is also not yet concluded.
So you said the RCEP is more flexible than TPP.
Yes, because RCEP does not include the WTO plus standards. RCEP is more flexible. Okay, countries are given more room, given more space to implement their own standards. Okay, समझ आ रहा है? Now come to the next question. Port 1. Pretty written. बताओ.
Trade and commerce forms the backbone of any economy. The Indian economy depends on trade via ports heavily. The busy Indian ports cater to world trade with a share of approximately 3% volume-wise. Problems. First, Indian ports lack robust infrastructure with respect to voluminous trade they are part of. Number two, lack of natural harbors in most of the ports. Number three, improper supply chain from the ports to the nearest cargo terminal. Four, problem of siltation that hampers the Indian ports. Fifth, unavailability of best practices by from the important world ports that makes our ports uncompetitive. Next, resource management by port authorities in India needs to be more effective and targeted. Next, uneven trade with respect to western and eastern ports. Measure taken. Government of India under its many flagship programs has aimed to address the ailing condition of our ports like the recent Sagarmala program. Number two, more number of ports are having inclusion of private players. There has to be inclusion of more private players so that holistic development of is possible via the PPP mode. Next, supply chain from the harbor up till cargo terminals are upgraded and made on robust lines. Next, interconnection of ports is facilitated to evenly distribute the trade pan-India. Next, roads and transportation in port vicinity are timely made and ridden wholesomely. Next, inland waterways are made effectively so that the ports are connected to rivers and lakes for enhancing trade volumes. Next, Port Authority of India is being made more effective and in charge of important trade-related activities. Conclusion: thus, the ports of any nation serves as the lifeblood of an economy. Certain lacunas are prevalent in Indian port scenario, but proper management and administrative intent shall make Indian ports to perform at par with the world ports.
Yeah, written good answer. What about you?
About 95% of India's trade by volume and 70% by value is done through maritime transport, highlighting the role of port sector in sustaining India's growth. Problems faced by port sector in India. First, port trust model. In India, major ports are working on public service models, whereas best ports in the world are working on landlord port model. Second, high turnaround time and high siltation. High turnaround time makes Indian ports an attractive destination as port of call for international cargo. Third, lack of containerization and delay in security clearances and manual handling of cargo. Fourth, governance problem. Major ports are managed by central government. Lack of coordination exists between major and minor ports, which are operated by state government. Fifth, underutilization of port infrastructure, as seen in Cochin Port. Measures taken: first, mechanization of existing berth and PPP contracts for construction of berth and terminals. Second, deepening of ports to handle large vessels. Third, establishing dry ports at JL Nehru Port and at Kandla. Fourth, focusing on feeder waterways. Fifth, dredging of East Coast ports, especially Kolkata. Further implementing, ending it. Further implementing of BK Chaturvedi recommendation will help to fast track development of Indian ports.
Your attempt is also good. I like this question. Both of you written really well. Did you write? बताओ आप. कोई बात नहीं. Still, you tell your answer.
Some points are with.
Okay, no issues. Just read out your answer. As compared to the last two questions, I guess this question was attempted by you quite well. Like both of you handled it in a very fine way. General question, but yes.
Even in few days back, Indian Express governance section
It came. I didn't follow it. Yes, tell. So, do you read in the Hindu and Indian Express both?
articles I read.
Achha.
So it's very tiring to read both of them.
It's tiring to read?
It's time consuming to read both of them.
Yeah.
Indian Expresses give certain like governance only, then they focus on transport. Like this, they give additional pages and additional for international relations.
Sometimes it's multiplication of efforts.
Yeah, that's true.
Like 80% of things are given in Indian Express, but
that's true. Yeah.
It's better to read one paper.
So you also follow Indian Express?
No, sir.
Hindu.
I studied Indian Express. Only.
Tell your answer.
Not to tell your answer.
Okay. Would you like to tell your answer?
Yes, sir. Indian ports have been functioning since Arakan age, and since then it has been increasing the prosperity of not only the coastal areas of Indian subcontinent but also the hinterland. At present, India's trade and commerce, nearly 90% is done through sea route, in which bulk products and daily use items and like petrol is being carried out via port to port. And if we consider only South China Sea, nearly 55% of trade is done only via sea. And so, considering in this context, so ports play a major role. These are the introduction. The problems we face is our infrastructure of ports is not up to the global standard, and it is not modernized according to the times. Then some of the security concerns. Next, budget is allocated, but it is not properly implemented due to corruption, etc., and transparency. Next, in the Gujarat area, the ports are facing some will face problems due to seabed and due to China's influence in Indian Ocean. It will face problems. And measures that have been taken is budget is allocated frequently, and second thing is Sagar Mala project is but it has to be implemented.
See, now we'll discuss the article. Okay, since you have already told convincing points, so we'll discuss in a very lighter way. Okay, this article, because the other two articles you had not much idea about it. Okay, so we'll discuss in detail. So this article will focus less. Okay, so see, you have told points which are general to all ports. Okay, but in this article we'll discuss points related to certain important ports of the country. Okay, so see, the port sector plays a vital role in sustaining the growth of country's trade and commerce, right? Now, and see, the ports are considered as the maritime war horses. Okay, unless and until you have a very high standard of port, your maritime trade will be very low. Okay, so since ages, okay, port are the center of attraction. Okay, for development of maritime trade, maritime commerce. Okay, now we'll discuss certain issues related to certain specific ports of India. Okay, and this was a study conducted by the Bureau of Research on Industry and Economic Fundamentals. Okay, and it observed that the seaports displayed specific patterns of issues based on differences in geography, infrastructure capacity, operational aspects, contractual arrangements, and so on. Okay, so see, now Haldia Port, Calcutta one. Okay, it is in the eastern coast of India and it is more prone to siltation. Okay, so what is required there? A lot of dredging is required to remove the sand. Okay, which makes the docking of the ships difficult, right? So consistent reduction in draft over the years and widening differences in average drafts recorded during summers and winters highlight the importance of regular dredging. Because of less amount of water, sand gets deposited, okay, which needs regular removal of sand, okay, from the area. And this is also a case in the case of different ports. The issue of semi-mechanization and manual handling of critical process. You can underline these keywords, okay? Having a cascading effect on overall operational efficiency is evident at the Paradip port. Paradip it is also in the eastern coast of India. Is in the state of Odisha, okay? The process of unloading from the ships to evacuation through rigs entails the use of outdated equipment. This is also an important point. Cranes and grabs with low evacuation capacity. Now the Paradip port is not so developed. Like if you see the ports of, let us say, Singapore, let us say London, okay, or let us say ports on the coast of Western Europe, or let us say ports on the coast of Northeast America. So they are highly developed, highly mechanized. Okay, the equipments used over there are so efficient that the rate of unloading is very high. Rate of loading is also very high. Okay, but Indian ports are not highly mechanized. So this is a issue specific to the port of Paradip. The issue of semi-mechanization and manual handling of critical processes. Okay, and use of outdated equipments. Okay, cranes and grabs with low evacuation capacity, and is impeded with operational glitches such as the process of manual loading of cargo on rakes. So when there is use of human labor for so bulk quantities, obviously the process is going to be slow. And when the process is going to be slow, the exchange of trade will be less, right? The Paradip example highlights the importance of complete mechanization of process. So what is required? What is required to convert these ports into maritime horses? Excessive mechanization, okay, intensive mechanization. Congestion at approach roads. Now this is case specific to the port Jawaharlal Nehru port. Okay, it is one of the leading port, and this port serves the whole of North India. Okay, the JNPT Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust in Mumbai. Okay, so what is the problem here? Congestion at the approach roads leading to JNPT. Okay, see, heavy congestion en route to the port as well as inside the port, leaving trucks stranded for days. So there is no faster evacuation of goods, okay, and faster transfer of goods to the ports. This is the problem which has inflicted the JNPT. Okay, with queues standing as up to 12 km. Now if trucks loaded with goods are stranded at the ports, now the delivery will be late. Okay, and the sending of goods outside India will be also late. So this hampers our trade, okay, thereby leading to inordinate delays and increased transaction cost. So are you understanding it? So see, you can compare these points, okay, with your answers. Now see what you did. You wrote, both of you wrote a good answer, okay, but that was quite general. Now I'm making it more specific, giving you a lot of keywords, okay, which will enhance your answer. समझ आ रहा है? Low mechanization, okay, manual handling of processes, dredging. Now see, some of the ports provide insights into certain regulatory and policy aspects. Now underline these words, regulatory and policy. Now we'll look into these issues, okay, that deserve attention. For example, the royalty, or let us say revenue share issue at Chidambaram port between the private terminal operator and the port trust. Now there is this always this conflict between the terminal operator and the port trust, okay. Now is the port in Chennai. Are you getting? This is the case of regulatory and policy aspects. The issues revolving around regulatory and policy aspects. Okay. See, the prolonged tariffs between the terminal operator and the port authorities over royalty coupled with contractual ambiguities. Now the contracts also not clear. Okay. The provisions of the contract, the terms of the contract. Okay. There is always this conflict between port terminal operator and the port trust. Understanding? It is in one of the earliest ventures in the Indian port sector, opened the gates to private operators, has continually marred infrastructure utilization. Now, if there is this conflict between the terminal operator and the port trust, so obviously what gets hampered is the creation of infrastructure at ports. Okay, if there is no clarity in the contracts between the terminal operator and the port trust, restructuring and modernization, as well as operational improvements at the terminal. Any difficulty? Now come to the next point. Underutilization of physical infrastructure, in particular, though is extremely prevalent at another private terminal, the Valdarpadam International Container Transshipment Terminal at Cochin Port. Now this is the issue related to Cochin Port. See, we are covering major ports of India. Haldia Port, Paradip, okay, one at the Cochin, one at Chennai, and the JNPT, okay, on the western coast of the country. Now underutilization of physical infrastructure. Now see, at some points there is less availability of physical infrastructure, and on the other side we are having underutilization of physical infrastructure. So see, even if we are having adequate infrastructure at certain ports, we are not able to use that. Now why we are not able to use that, we'll see here. See, the terminal operated under the PPP arrangement displays a far from par capacity utilization of merely 30%. Now see, out of 100%, we are able to utilize only 30% of the capacity at Cochin Port. Okay, so that constricts our trade. Okay, that hampers our trade. Seen as a major initiative towards bringing back transshipment cargo to the country, and as a key driver, the terminal has been far from achieving both the objectives over the year. Okay, so there is this underutilization of infrastructural capacities that are present at Cochin Port. Okay. Now, why is this happening? Because of the tariff structure. The tariff determined for the port by the TAMP, that is Tariff Authority for Major Ports, was reported to be almost 3 times. Now, if the tariff is so high that it is becoming uncompetitive for the terminal operator to operate, okay, so obviously there is going to happen the underutilization of the infrastructural capacities that are present over there. So, are you getting it? See, underutilization and lower volumes of cargo handled are the major reasons cited behind such inflated tariff. Now see, if tariff is high, there is underutilization, and if there is underutilization, to recover the cost, the authority will impose higher tariffs. Okay, so this cycle leads to the hampering of growth of trade in those ports. Okay, so I guess it is making a lot of coherence. Okay, if you incorporate these points into including all the points that you have written, it will make your answer look a little brighter. Okay, especially these terms are really important. And if you mention, yes, this is the problem that this port is facing, this is the problem that this port is facing, it will enhance your answer. Okay, that yes, the examiner will convince that this guy is aware of the geographical things, okay, the regulatory and policy issues that are inflicting Indian ports. Because your answers is very general, like answers are good, the points will be same, but writing keywords is important. Writing including geographical aspects, including regulatory and policy aspects, that makes your answer little advanced. Okay. Now we will see the prospective ventures. Okay, the prospective measures. Now, how to improve the condition? Okay, the central government needs to take measures to facilitate trade through Indian ports, either in terms of building and maintaining infrastructure for handling desired capacities, or undertaking relevant policy and regulatory reforms. So, see, there are five major areas. Infrastructure capacities that has to be enhanced. Okay, port mechanization. Okay, now this issue of tariff structure has to be resolved. Now there should be coherence in the tariff structure. Understanding to avoid the conflict between terminal port operator, okay, and the port authorities. Okay, in terms of infrastructure, it is important to maintain draft to serve bigger vessels. See, draft means the availability of water at the ports. Okay, now if dredging is happening continuously, okay, so see, in case of Haldia port, okay, it is important to maintain draft so that it will be easier for bigger vessels to dock at the airport. Sorry, dock at the sea, port. Okay. Ensure mechanization of ports through introduction of new equipment and procedures. New equipment for fast mobilization of goods. Okay, at the port. Build new facilities, upgrade existing facilities, automate systems procedure. There should be much more digitization of the port. Okay, this manual handling should go. Improvement in rail and road connectivity. This is also important, especially in case of JNPT. Okay. Now see, if ports are well connected to roads and railways, what will happen? That time that is taken for the goods to go out and in from the port, that will be reduced. Okay, and that will automatically lead to a higher level of trade. Okay, higher level of exports and imports. Getting it? Improvement in road and road connectivity for speedy evacuation of cargo. Okay. In terms of policy and regulatory reforms, it is important to streamline tariff. As I told, this tariff issue has to go out, has to be resolved ASAP. Okay. Determination by TAMP along with the provision for periodic revisions. Now this tariff should also be revised continuously, should be assessed, should be like if something is not working, that has to be sorted out. Okay. Ensure transparent and effective contractual agreements in PPP. Now when the government is going for PPP, there should be proper rules and regulations clearly mentioned in the contract. Okay, so that trade does not get hampered because of the delay in processes. Okay, implement strengthen communication platforms. That is also important for seamless information flow among stakeholders. Okay, there should be policy guidelines also. Strengthen system integration, ensure paperless clearance of procedure. This is also important. Okay, because of this paperwork, things gets delayed. Okay, and transactions, and develop user information portals and so on. Now, user information portals like websites and all. Okay, there should be clear cut, defined guidelines, rules, and regulations for the port authorities, for the for the terminal operators. Okay, for those who are the other stakeholders, like those who are taking goods in and out of the ports. Okay. Apart from reviving the ports currently operational, these measures, if duly incorporated, promise to sufficiently bolster prospective ventures as the country moves towards optimistic maritime trade regime. So, India must revive its ports because the amount of trade, okay, the volume and the value of trade is really high. Okay, in case of India, because since ages, India's trade is maritime. Okay, because three sides of the country is surrounded by sea. Okay, see, now these are the additional points. These are the points which address to the article. Okay, like you can write these points also. Now see what government has done. This is called Sagarmala project. Okay, is by which ministry? Sagarmala project.
Sir,
Which ministry?
commerce?
No,
No, sir.
shipping.
Shipping.
Okay, Sagamala project. So you know about Sagarmala, right? It is a port-led development project, okay, for the transformation of the ports of the country, okay. Now let me ask you, this is important from prelims point of view. How many major ports are there in the country?
12.
Plus
12, I guess.
One day
One more. Idayam, sir. Idayam.
latest in Kerala.
Which one?
Idayam.
No,
Idayam.
no, Kerala. It is in Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu, sir. Idayam.
Yeah, near Chennai.
Yes,
Acha,
sir.
I'll check it, okay. 12 major ports, okay. You remember the name of all those, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is important from claims, okay. And there's this thing called natural harbor plus artificial lake,
Yes.
artificial harbor, okay. All those things you must remember. Sagarmala, you know about Sagarmala, or shall we discuss it?
No, sir.
And this one, Port Rail Connectivity Corporation, that is also important. Okay. Now promoting shipbuilding industry and making India initiative, this is also important thing the government is doing, okay. Now do you remember the Indian Maritime Summit which was held last year in Mumbai? Indian Maritime Summit, okay. This was an initiative by the government of India to modernize ports, okay, to call the investors to from different countries, okay, who are having excellence in port management, okay, to garner investments from them, okay. Indian Maritime Summit the government had conducted last year. It resulted in business agreements for around 82,000 some crores, okay. Played key in highlighting the role of port-led development. Now, regulatory process should be clear-cut and hassle-free. Port mechanization, port modernization programs must be undertaken. Need to streamline tariff. Okay. So these are the additional points that you can write in your article, write in your answers also. What a fair idea. Now we're running short of time, so I'll just discuss it. Okay. Now let us come to the Doha Pact. I'll tell. Shall I summarize everything? It will be much easier for you. Okay. And once you read the article, you will have a clear understanding. Okay. Now Doha Pact. So before Doha Pact, let me discuss about Kyoto. Kyoto, you know, signed in 1997. Okay. Now see, come to Kyoto. See, it commits the parties by setting internationally binding emission reduction target. So in Kyoto, there are two kinds. The countries are divided into two categories. Okay, one is the developed country, non-developing countries. Developed countries are called Annex B, right? And the developing countries are called non-Annex countries. Okay, so for Annex B countries, it's compulsory. It's binding on them. The targets are binding on them. What is the target? 5%. Right? And for developing countries, it's not binding. Okay. So Kyoto 1997 it was signed. It come into effect in 2005. Okay. See the CUR article. The protocol's major feature is it has mandatory targets on greenhouse gases emissions for the world's leading economies which have accepted it. Okay. Target level has been given over there at least by 5% below existing 1990 levels. Okay, in the commitment period between 2008 2012. So between 2008 to 2012, there are 37 NXB country, including European Union. Okay, so these countries had to reduce 5% of the 1990 level. Okay, greenhouse gases. Now, what is the time period? From 2008 to 2012, and it was binding on them. Okay. Now, I'll bring Doha Pact over here. Now, see, in 2012, okay, the first period of Kyoto expired. 2012. Okay. So for the next period, Doha Amendment was brought. Okay, 2012, and the level of contribution that these developing countries have to do has been increased. Okay, to 18%. Now, please go to Doha Pact 1. Doha Pact, the first article. Now come to the last point of the first page. See, under the Doha Amendment, which should have become operational from January 1, 2013. Okay, the second period, it's called the second commitment period. Okay, the obligated parties are required to work towards reducing the GHG emissions. That is GHG. Okay, it's written GHG by at least 18% below 1990 levels, okay, till 2020 when the Paris Agreement kicks in. This is Doha Agreement, okay, and India have recently ratified it, okay, days back only. So I'll just tell you, okay. So from this is important from prelims point of view, okay. So see, in Doha Agreement, so in Kyoto Protocol, okay, 1997, 2005, 2008, 2012, okay. Now there is a list of gases which are covered in Kyoto Protocol, which have to be reduced by 5% at the 1990% level, okay, by these NXB countries, that is advanced countries, 37 countries plus European Union, okay. So US backed out, Canada backed out of Kyoto Protocol, okay, you know that. Okay, so what are the 6 gases?
CO2,
हाँ
CO2, methane,
बोलो
ozone,
हाँ ओजोन नहीं है there is ozone.
Nitrogen, SFC, HCFCs,
Six gases, okay. वहाँ पे स्टेटमेंट हुआ है, okay. CO2, see, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, NO2, okay, N2O, sorry, HFC, SFC, PF6, HFC, PFC, SF6, ठीक है, 6 gases. Now in Doha Agreement, one more gas was added, which is
Sir, HFC.
नहीं, in Doha Agreement, in Doha Amendment,
Trifluoride, yes sir.
nitrogen
trifluoride.
NF3, okay.
Yes sir.
So this is a recent addition, okay. I am mentioning it over there, nitrogen trifluoride. Second, I think the third page. Please see the third page. 6 gases के नीचे देखो वहाँ पे 6 gases है. Next, yes, nitrogen trifluoride, okay. It was added in the Doha Amendment, and the commitment period is from 2013 to 2020, okay. Now this is the Doha Agreement, Doha Pact, okay. Doha Pact to the Kyoto Protocol, or shall we say the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. This is what it is. Okay, now I'll tell you about little more about Doha and plus Kyoto, okay. Now come to the fifth point of first page. The first commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol was from 2008 to 2012, okay, and the second period, the Doha Amendment, which was adopted in 2012, was to enter in action from 2012 to 2013 to 2020, okay, and it is yet to enter since it requires the ratification of 144 member countries, okay, and India has decided to ratify it.
Yes, approved.
Huh? Anything? So see, the fourth point from below. Unlike the Paris Agreement, the Kyoto Protocol does not bind its developing countries, okay, like India and China, into any kind of obligation to reduce the emissions or set any targets. The targets are only applicable to the less than 40 countries listed in Annex 1. So Annex 1 is equivalent to Annex B countries, okay. There is this called Annex 1 and non-Annex countries, okay. So non-Annex countries are the developing ones. See, 37 industrialized countries plus European Union. This is in Annex 1 or Annex B countries, okay. Any difficulty in understanding? Any doubt? Because this is important from prelims also, okay.
So Doha Agreement is
Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol.
Doha Amendment is like Kyoto Protocol and Doha Amendment are like how are they?
See, Kyoto Protocol, the first commitment period, okay, from 2008 to 2012. Now from 2013, we had to enter into second commitment period, and that is what is Doha Amendment from 2013 to 2020. Now from 2020, we will be having the Paris Agreement, okay. Things are getting clear? Okay. See, first commitment period 8 to 12. Second commitment period 2013 to 2020 is for second commitment, okay. In first commitment period, reduction of GHGs by 5%. In second commitment period, that is according to Doha Amendment, by 18%. It's written over there. Everything has been mentioned. First, try to understand. Okay, try to get a clarity of what are the numbers in which agreement, okay. and it's not binding on Annex 1 or Annex B countries. Okay, it's not. It's binding. Sorry, it's binding.
Doha is binding.
Doha, Kyoto, both are binding. See, Doha is an amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. Okay, for second commitment period. Don't confuse it. Doha is a part of Kyoto. It's an amendment because the amendment was taken place at Doha. Okay.
Kyoto Protocol is not binding.
Kyoto Protocol is binding. Both are binding on which countries?
Developed.
That is Annex 1 or Annex B. Binding on 37 countries plus 1 European Union. Okay.
Kyoto Protocol, Doha Amendment, both are binding on Annex 1 country.
Annex 1 or Annex B. Okay. This is in Annex 1 or Annex B, 37 countries, okay, which are highly industrialized, plus European Union, that is mentioned. Okay. Are you understanding? Any difficulty? Because this is important from Klim's point of view.
So this Paris Agreement, this is not binding, right?
Paris Agreement is voluntary in nature. That we discussed now.
Oh yes, yes.
And this is, did you forget?
Yes.
So things are getting clearer or hazy?
It's clear.
Clear now?
Yes.
Okay. And 6 gases in Kyoto, 1 more addition in Doha. NF3, okay, nitrogen trifluoride, okay. And what is the percentage level? 5%, 18%. Okay, please understand this. Very important, very easy, okay, do not complicate it.
So 5%?
5% Kyoto में है ना?
First phase में.
First phase में, okay.
Okay. Second में till 18.
Everything is written there. Easy, eh? Okay. If you go through once, you will be having lot clearer picture, okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So, is given in one note also.
One note also is given in one note also, okay. So you
Sir, in later things addition.
see whatever addition is done here, it's done there also, okay. And more addition will be done there, so you can refer to there also. Lot of sections are there. It's clearly organized. One note is clearly organized, okay. So now let us come to this Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol, did you understand everything? Okay. Now see, under the protocol, countries must meet their targets primarily through national measures, okay. However, see, if a country is polluting more, okay, and if a country is polluting less, so the country which is polluting less must be awarded, right? So how does the award gets to it? Okay. So see, the to the protocol also offers them an additional means to meet their targets by way of 3 market-based mechanisms. This is important, but this is easy to understand. I'll explain you. Okay. So what is emission trading? For example, let us say there are 2 countries. Okay, one is having a quota of 100 carbon equivalent. Okay, 100 ton carbon equivalent. Okay, let us say, and a country, both countries are having 100. Okay, one country has exhausted its level, 100 carbon ton equivalent. Okay, and another country is having lot of say spare. Okay, for example, it has used only 50. So what it does with this 50? Now, if other country requires 50, okay, so it can buy from it. This is called emission trading, and this is in the context of what he has written about carbon credit. Okay, so you can lend me your quota. Understanding? So this is emission trading. Okay.
So also there was a mechanism like if a developed country is producing more of carbon, it can subsequently plant more trees in developing.
We're coming to that. We're coming to that. Okay. So now the second initiative is CDM, that is Clean Development Mechanism. Okay. So CDM is exactly what you are seeing. Okay. So see, if a developed countries want to emit more carbon, okay, so it can compensate it by taking green activities or emission reduction activities in the developing countries. Okay, is written over there. Any confusion? So see, such projects can earn sellable certified emission reduction (CER) credits. Okay, to the one who is emitting, each equivalent to 1 ton of CO2. So things are getting clearer, right? And what is joint implementation? I'll just tell you. Look, see, CDM, developed countries will implement green projects, okay, non-emitting projects in developing countries. That is, Annex 1 countries will implement projects in non-Annex countries, okay. Now, joint implementation, Annex 1 countries will get carbon emission reduction units, okay, by implementing projects in Annex 1 countries only. उन्हीं के बीच में होगा, okay. Did you understand?
Yes, sir. So the joint implementation.
Joint implementation.
So Russia is doing.
So see, if Russia is Annex 1 country, okay, and USA is Annex 1 country, so Russia will undertake projects in USA.
Not in development.
Not in developing countries. Only in
Annex 1
Annex 1 से Annex 1. ठीक है. And in case of CDM, Annex 1 to non-Annex countries. Okay, developing countries. So forget about Annex and non-Annex. Just consider developing and developed. Okay,
In CDM developed into developing, and in joint implementation developed into developing.
developed to developed. Okay, so this is the way. And what is the adaptation fund? This is also important. So see, adaptation fund was established. See, this question might come in prelims. Okay, adaptation fund, this is very important. See, all these funds, okay, which are global in nature, which includes almost all countries of the world. These are very important. You must try to find out more about them. So what is adaptation fund? Adaptation fund was established to finance adaptation projects and programs in developing countries that are parties to the Kyoto Protocol. So see, it will have finances, okay, to fund projects in developing countries. Underline that word, second line, okay. In the first commitment period, the fund was financed mainly with a share of proceeds from CDM project activities. Okay, so see, what was the amendment made in Doha in 2012? It was decided that for the second commitment period, that is from 2013 to 2020, international emissions trading and joint implementation would also provide the adaptation fund with a 2% share of proceeds. Now see, from all these financial mechanisms, contribution is coming. Earlier, the contribution was coming only from CDM activities. Now, emission trading and joint implementation is also included under the Doha Amendment. समझ आ रहा है? Like, are you understanding everything?
Yes.
So do ask, okay, wherever you feel confusion, okay, do ask. So see, Doha Amendment, one gas was added, 18% was done, okay, 18%. Now this adaptation fund was also increased, okay. So see, the adaptation fund is supervised and managed by the adaptation fund board. The GEF, okay, this is your duty. I'll give you this task. Find more about GEF, okay, Global Environment Facility. So if I'm not mistaken, I guess
PT question, sir.
it's a PT question, right?
Last.
I guess in 2014.
Okay.
14 na?
Yes.
So you must see. That is what I was telling you. Go in this way. Try to see what questions have appeared already in the examination, and try to work in that way. When you are reading the newspaper, when you come across an organization which is working at a very global level, okay, which is encompassing almost all the countries of the world, which is funding all the countries of the world, okay. Now this article comes over here. Now one more important topic has to be discussed, that is the Kigali Agreement. So I'll discuss it fast only. Now come to the Kigali Agreement on HFC, okay. So you know HFC, see, you know Montreal Protocol, okay. See, Montreal Protocol, it encompasses Montreal Protocol, okay. Just understand, see what I'm asking, okay. So Montreal Protocol, it encompasses GHGs, ozone depleting gases, okay, which are depleting the ozone layer, which is highly important for saving the planet from the ultraviolet radiations, right? So, but HFC is not a part of Montreal Protocol. See, HFC does not hamper ozone, but it has a very high level of global warming potential, GWP. Okay, HFC has a global warming potential of 14,800 GWP. Okay, but it does not hamper ozone, right? And it is not under Montreal Protocol. So, in the Kigali Agreement, HFC was brought under Montreal Protocol. Okay. Now the countries of the world will try to reduce the amount of HFC under Montreal Protocol. Okay. See, second point. While HFCs do not deplete the ozone layer, their GWP is 1,000 times more than CO2. You can write over there is 14,800 times. 14800. Okay.
100 times the CO2.
It's the GWP is so high as compared to CO2. Okay. the global warming potential. Like it can, the intensity of warming through HFC is much higher than CO2. Okay, but it does not hamper the ozone. See, under the agreement, developed countries will reduce HFC emissions use first, followed by a group of Article 5 countries, including China. So this is the developing country. Okay, India and 9 other countries in South and West Asia will follow suit. Overall, the agreement is expected to reduce HFC use by 85%. See the next point. Next. Okay, the countries are divided into 3 groups. Okay, the developed countries led by US and Europe will reduce HFC use by 85% by 2016 over a 2013 11-13 baseline. So these are the different targets for each category of country. Okay, and the category, there are 3 categories. Okay, China, which is the largest producer of HFC in the world, will reduce HFC use by 80% by 2045 over the 2020-22 baseline. Now, if you can tell me which are the industries which use HFC, important for prelims. Refrigerator, AC, yes. So these are the 2 major industries which use HFC, okay, as coolant. Now, China, which is now let us come to India. India will reduce the use of HFC by 85% over the 2024-26 baseline. Okay, so this is the target for India. The amendment also increases funding support to developing countries. Okay, now the developed countries will finance the projects of shifting. Okay, of shifting to of less consumption HFC to developing countries. Okay. In addition to their phase down deadlines, developed nations have agreed to cut 70% of their HFC use by 2029. So see, the agreement. India was one of the major contributor to the agreement. Okay, and the agreement is more beneficial for developing countries. Okay, because they do not have the option for HFC. Now, if HFC is phased out, okay. Now let us see if suddenly India is asked to cut down the consumption of HFC in the refrigerant and air conditioner industries. Now these 2 industries are booming in India. Okay, now the domestic companies are doing well, and if suddenly HFC is taken out, now we do not have an alternative to HFC. Okay, so whatever alternative there is to HFC, these are owned by the countries of the West. Okay, and they are not going to lease it to India without higher royalty. Okay, and Indian companies will suffer losses if HFC is suddenly phased down. So India is given a more elbow room, more space. Okay, if you see the article, understanding what is the crux, why India was opposing, because it will be harmful for its own domestic industries. Okay, the agreement upholds the principle of CBDR and RC. See, this agreement also incorporates this important and essential doctrine. Okay. See, the agreement recognizes the development imperatives of high growth economies like India and provides a realistic and viable roadmap for the implementation of a phase out schedule. So there is this timeline which India has agreed. Okay, India has agreed to a very definite timeline which is more in its own interest. See, now this is an additional point. India has announced domestic action. Now, this is an additional point. Okay, like India has already started to act on the agreement. Okay, through its own domestic legislation. India announced domestic action on HFC, a super greenhouse gas with a global warming potential of 14,800, which is produced as a byproduct of HCFC 22. Okay, so see, HCFC 22, it is covered under Montreal Protocol. Okay, and all the countries have to phase out the use of HCFC by 2030. Okay, and HFC, see, HFC is an alternative to HCFC. Okay, but now countries are saying that no, the consumption of HFC will also have to be reduced. Understanding? So see, India has offered the manufacturers of HFC 23, a byproduct of another chemical used in the refrigerant gas manufacture, that is HCFC 22. Okay, so see, HFC is produced as a byproduct of HCFC 22. Okay, with a staggeringly high contribution to global warming, to now capture and dispose of it at their own cost. Now see, there are 5 companies in India which manufacture HCFC 22. Okay, and HFC is manufactured as a part of HCFC 22. Okay, now these companies, they have made billions of dollars through CTM projects. Now India is asking them to destroy HFC. Now government will not fund them since they have already made millions, billions of rupees. Okay. Now government is saying you have to destroy it on your own cost. This is a welcome step. Welcome. This is a step in the right direction towards the reduction of use of HFC. Okay. Like a proactive step on the part of India. Okay. It shows India's commitment towards the reduction of HFC.
So can you give some examples of the super greenhouse gases?
There is HFC, SF6, sulfur hexafluoride, PFC, HFC, हाइड्रोजन पर लिस्ट ऑफ गैसेस वहाँ था ना क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल में, वो सब ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस हैं.
नहीं, सुपर ग्रीन हाउस.
सुपर ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस मींस which are more, which have high GWP, global warming potential. Okay. See, there is this HCFC. Okay. There is something called in periodic table, the bromine, fluorine. Do you know all these compounds?
Yes, sir.
So these the gases contain these chemicals. Okay, these are super greenhouse gases because their GWP is really high. Fluorine, bromine, chlorine. Okay, because they have a larger impact on ozone.
All the other things.
Understanding? And if you want list, we can discuss it also, no problem. Okay. And these all, see, LCFC and all na, these gases comes under Montreal Protocol. Okay. But HFC was not under Montreal Protocol, and through Kigali Agreement, now the countries are saying that we will reduce HFC under Montreal Protocol. Okay. So Kigali is the capital of which country? So what is the impact on India? So see, India gets to participate in a positive global climate action. See, this is right. This is a step in the right direction. Okay, the reduction in the consumption of HFC. Okay, since it is a gas with high GWP. See, it allows India the time to allow its heating, ventilation, HVAC. Okay, HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This is the whole industry which uses HFC. Now 2047, I guess, the time limit for India. So it gives India enough room to shift to gases which have less GWP. Okay, to find alternatives to HFC. Things are getting clearer, right? Kigali Agreement. This was signed in October 2016. Okay. See, one of the questions before India in its implementation of Montreal Protocol commitment is the need to align its goal for Make in India. So see, Make in India also considers this HVAC industry also. Okay, so it gives enough time for India to shift to gases which are alternative to HFC. Okay, inducting alternatives to HFC such as hydrocarbons, ammonia, carbon dioxide. See, these are the gases which also could be used in this HVAC industry. Okay. In heating, ventilation, and air conditioning industries. These are the other alternatives to HFC. Okay, but the problem is that the technology is not that good in India. Okay, India is yet to develop the technology which has to be borrowed from the West. So see, last point, see, India must seek finance and technology from the developed nations to make the transition. Right, so these are the gases. Okay, carbon dioxide, or shall we say ammonia, hydrocarbons. Okay, which are alternatives to HFC. Okay, but the technology is not available in India, which India must seek from the developed countries of the West. So this brings us to the completion of the whole article. So any doubt you can ask, or you can even write down if you want to ask in next class. Okay.
So the basic important features of Kigali Agreement would be this inclusion of HFCs.
See, inclusion of HFC. Okay, the time limit, the categorization of the countries into three category. Okay, what is the time limit for USA? What is the time limit for a country like China? Okay, and what is the time limit for developing countries like India? Since India's industries which uses HFC are a very developing stage, are at a very nascent stage. Okay, so to make that transition, more time limit has been given to India. Okay, that window is wide for India. See, points are clearly mentioned. Okay, and you have understood the concept. Once you revise it again, it will be much easier for you to remember things. Even the Paris Agreement also, I would like to stress this point. You must at least remember 7 to 8 points of Paris Agreement. Clear cut, because that will reduce your time in exam. Okay, you will not waste much time in recollecting facts. If you have already memorized properly, you can just go ahead, because is something called facts, there is something called analysis. Okay, in analysis you need to put your brain, but facts you must remember. So Paris Agreement is most factual. Yes, these are the things that is planned to be done in the post 2020 framework. So shall we conclude?
So what are we supposed to do tomorrow?
We will be doing few more articles tomorrow, plus this same exercise. There are a lot of important articles also tomorrow. The current based articles only. Okay, and you must be reading your static part. I assume. So you are going through Lakshmikant, you are going through NCRTs and all, right? So you are brushing up with your geography also. The static part. See, last time more questions were from the current affairs section. Okay, so you must have a balanced understanding of what is your static part, what is your current affairs. Okay, you must be thorough with your current affairs. You must be good enough with your static part, so that if question comes, you would not falter. Okay, you must get at least 60 correct answers, net correct. Okay, like I'm saying from the general perspective. Okay, to be safe enough, 60 is 60 plus net score. Okay, I'm not saying total net score after deducting your negatives. You must get 60 plus correct answers. It will make you easily safe. You will easily pass through prelims. And for that, a good understanding of static part is important, because last year, if you see questions, most of the questions were from current. Okay, not most, but yes, I guess more than 40% were from current. But those who were not good with current, but those who were good with static part, they could qualify. Because see, even if you know 20 questions out of 50 questions from current, okay, and out of 50 questions from static, if you know at least 40 questions, okay, so it makes you 60. But in that case, your accuracy has to be really sharp. That is also demand of the paper. Then your accuracy must be good. So for a better result, you must be good with both your current affairs also, with your static part also. Okay, so you must be thorough with your Lakshmikant, each and every. I guess read everything. Okay, from Lakshmikant. Lakshmikant is a small book. Like, it's a thick book, but I know 500 pages. Okay, but chapters are so interesting. Okay, hardly 3 4 hours. There are certain chapters which are big. You can cover it in hardly 3 4 hours. Okay, and small chapters, 12 pages, 10 pages, 15 pages. You can cover it in 1.5 hour only. If you are reading it multiple times, okay, the more you read, the lesser time you consume. Okay,
And so for geography, like NCRT.
for geography, NCRTs. Okay, and you must be thorough with your NCRTs. Geography, more of the questions are from concepts. Okay, geography, NCRTs, I'll suggest you from read from the 6th standard, or let us say from the 8th standard geography. Okay, 10 is very highly essential. 10 standard geography, I'll say do not skip it. 10 standard geography, okay, one book Indian geography, plus 11 12th. Okay, and I'll suggest you read from 6th only.
This you're telling new or old?
I don't really know what is new and what is old, but whatever is available
So
now.
apart from NCRT, any like
Apart from NCRT, you must be good with your maps. Okay, sea with all the geographical reliefs. Okay, relief features, sea, mountains, all those things. Important cities, because they ask you like arrange the cities from north to west, south to north, all these things, right? So you must be good with the maps also. Indian map also. Okay, so they can ask anything. It's just that how much deeper you are willing to go. You must dig things, okay? You must read from, if you are not satisfied with one source, okay, you read again, but if you are getting something new which you think is relevant for your exam, you must read that also.
Like I recently saw this portion of biogeography regarding the environment section. Like the person said that you can read that portion from this Savinder Singh.
I never referred Seminar Singh. That is for geography, right?
So, sir, for environment section, there is a chapter in Savinder Singh called as biogeography.
So if there is a separate chapter, and if you find you have time, plus if you are understanding it, and if you can cover it fast, you can refer it also. I have not seen. If you think that is, you can do it.
Like for environment, current newspapers and internet digging, that's enough.
Yeah.
And apart from that, Shankar.
If you are following Shankar, that is fine. See, whatever sources you have, I'll say read multiple times. Okay, and if you see something in a newspaper which is new, so think more about it. That is why I told you find more about GEF. I did not write here, okay, because I know what is GEF. You also know what is GEF. So that is a way of making you think on those lines, okay, and that will be sufficient. See you in the next class.
Okay, so that's all for today's class. If you like this video, you hit like and subscribe to our channel as well.